come a little closer and lend me your ears. Don't worry, you keep yours while I keep mine.
In each episode, we'll dig into the major stories, uncover the truth, and retrieve gems from Yada's blog.
We'll discuss what's right, bark about what's wrong, wag our tails at the thrill of discovery, and take you on adventures through the exciting world we live in today. So, fasten your curiosity leash and get ready. Right then, coming to you with another episode of the Yada's Vlog on a Blog. Tomorrow's news, disseminated today. Let's dive in.
Kevin, we are just never going to be able to watch the Wookiee endorsement and introduction without cracking up. It is right. It is just really marvelous. I think that was a combination of Leia and John.
Yes, it was. I don't know how they got. I don't know how they got photos of or video of Wookiee on Kara on the boat.
Yeah,
you know?
I know. Wookiee has always liked being a yachter, so he's a yachty dog. He's got a nice business suit going. He's having a mint julep in his rattan peacock chair.
Right?
He is definitely styling, and the Wookiee knows what he's talking about. We're going to wag our tails here and there as we go through this, and we have a special guest, hopefully a permanent guest here on the vlog. On the vlog, this is Roger Bankston, and Roger is well known to those of us who look at the comments on the vlog presentations. Roger has many of the most interesting, so we're delighted to have you, Roger.
Thank you, Craig. It's really happy to be here. It's a pleasure. It's exciting. We're ready to go.
Oh, good. Well, Roger is exceedingly well-read and very articulate. Writes beautifully. So this is your opportunity to speak coherently. I've been doing it for years, and people have questioned whether I could ever say anything coherent. But this is a slightly different medium than the one that you are an absolute master of. We have had the benefit for the last year in particular and reading Roger's comments when we do a blog, and they are always the most articulate, most pertinent to the subject, well-researched, well-spoken, well-organized. You have a way with words, my friend.
Well, thank you, Craig. It's a process, actually. I have a pad and a pen here that I use to take notes with during the show, and at some point in the show, it just comes to me, and I write it down, and then I maybe tweak it a little bit and post it. But hopefully, it's current to what we're talking about. But it's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, one of the advantages that you have is that you've read all the books. You've been with us on this journey, and in so doing, understand the covenant. You understand what he's trying to achieve. You know where we are in the timeline. You know what's going to occur. And when you have that kind of perspective, and that's what we're trying to bring to the news, then that gives you just a huge advantage.
Yeah, it does. It does, and it's an amazing experience. It's just every time you do a show, Craig, I'm thinking I'm not going to be able to do a comment on this show. It's just been too many. I'm going to fail here, but in the end, it comes out, and it's just incredible how it works.
Yeah, I think that if you look at our last few months of shows, we have grown so enormously. It has been exponential in terms of our understanding. I look at that show that we did in the Ocean Studio on luminaries. I think it was episode before last, and we've been watching it. It's an out of body experience. You're saying this is really deeply profound, and it was insights that are transformational to who we are, where we are in this world, what we're up against, what we're trying to achieve. But all of them, everyone was unheralded. No one has perceived any of these things previously, and they're well documented in the Torah. So we're not extrapolating here, and yet, from my view, they were actually delivered in a manner that was fairly easily comprehensible. The examples that were used to explain very complicated concepts, like the fact that God throughout time has inserted many of the same souls over and over again because he's developed a confidence level in certain people that he chooses to deploy at critical times because he doesn't want to risk an unpredicted or inappropriate outcome. You know, if Doda's in trouble and that's his main guy, he has to send the guy who seems to get him back on his feet and get going again. And he's done it for 6,000 years.
Well, we've reached a point in time where this wasn't possible 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years. It's only possible now.
It is.
And you know, if you're relying on the old translations, you're just going to be lost. There's no way.
Correct.
Without what you've done, we wouldn't know any of this stuff. And it's obvious now when you take a look at it from that. You know, you can look at a picture 1,000 times, but you're missing the point. And when you actually see what it is, oh yeah, it makes sense.
I think that is the key. That going back now a quarter century ago, I invented an entirely different way to translate. I used different sources. I went all the way back to the Dead Sea Scrolls. I scrubbed every word of its diacritical markings and religious implications. I went back to the root, studied the letters as they were actually written, and then came up with an amplified translation style. But it's in building that foundation now that we see the correlations, because these words, when you put them and associate them correctly with other places that God has woven his story together, all of a sudden it's those connections that take us from a powerful foundation of knowledge to comprehension beyond what people have perceived previously.
It's multiplying exponentially now. I mean, and you're right with the connections. The connections are so important, and nobody's found those before. I mean,
no one's there.
Not just one,
most people don't even
connection.
don't even have the base knowledge. But part of it too is we like to keep a broad view. I want to speak just a moment here of Modi. Modi with the Bujit up right there in the middle of his head. He's holding the trident of Shiva. This is a really interesting character. He is the man that is trying to appeal to everybody. He is Xi's best friend, Putin's best friend, Netanyahu's best friends, Trump's best friend. He is whoever he is with. He is the BFF, but then you go to their absolute enemy the next day, and he'll be their BFF. And you might say, well, he's playing the role to for the best of India, but you realize that the man is overtly religious, and if you are overtly religious, you aren't rational. You can't be overtly religious and be rational, and therefore he can't be trusted. And yet it's one of the world's largest economies, one of the world's most, if not the most populous country in the world. And he is playing an interesting role between the BRICS world and the West. And he is a real power broker as a result of these things. And yet, Trump went against him and tried to blockade all manner of shipments from him, told him who he could buy his energy from, who he couldn't, and what kind of tariffs would be put on shipments from India without, Trump, who has been promising 600% reductions in the cost of drugs. My math doesn't work out that way, but nonetheless, that's Trump math. The 600% reductions in the cost of drugs. Didn't realize that most of the drugs that come into the United States are made in India. And if you put a 50% tariff on them, you are not going to reduce the cost of those pharmaceuticals. But it's true. And if you want to win friends, you don't tell people that, we're going to sanction your goods if you don't play by our sanction rules. But here, I just wanted to check a bit into Shiva. Shiva is part of the Hindu Trinity. And you might say, well, how could you have a Trinity in the Hindu religion when there are a few million gods and goddesses? Right. But because and on all of these religions, there's always three main players. So in the Hindu religion, there is a Trinity. And it is Shiva who is the destroyer. Destroyer of the universe is the temple he just came out of. So you're holding a trident, and you're You're trumpeting the destroyer of the universe. Is that a guy you would want to cozy up to and trust?
Not a business partner. Yeah.
No, not a business partner. And by the way, the interesting thing about Shiva, because Brahma is the creator and in the Hindu religion, and Vishnu, he is the preserver. But if you look at Shiva, Shiva has a similar association with humanity that do all gods. Because guess what? All of the gods created by religion, they have human characteristics. Look at all the Greek gods and the Roman gods and the Egyptian gods and these guys, surprise. They all are human. They just take a little variation of human. I put an animal head on it or some kind of a tail or hooves or whatever. But surprise, every time that man makes a god, that god looks really human. And you take the world's most popular religion, and their god is human.
Right. It's all got pagan roots. So
Oh, but the most telling thing of all is they're all modeled after humans. So your God is no bigger than you are. So how do you have a God that qualifies as a God if he's like Jesus and he's human? Men can kill him. I mean, anyway, this particular one, he's got cobras as either a crown or as a necklace, typically drawn as a hermaphrodite. It's called masculine, but every drawing or sculpture looks very feminine. Typically has four arms, 4 hands. It's known mostly for contradictions, and it's just sad that somebody can hold up a trident like that walking out of a temple of a god so obviously fake.
Yeah, and it's surprising how big of business. I mean, we understand the big business of Christianity here in the United States with the mega churches and with your televangelists and everything. I mean, the actual people can see the disgusting amount of business wealth that they suck out of their congregations, right?
Well, look at the Vatican.
India, yeah. Well, sure. India is insanely wealthy through how it sucks. You know, you did a story a few years ago about they opened up one of the bank vaults or one of the vaults that was of the and the amount of gold that was in there from people just giving it to the church, and so
it wasn't the church, but yes. Yeah, well, there are people. Temple, There are people in the Hindu religion that are supposed to be essentially sub-gods, and the amount of money that they fleece from the people is at levels beyond what our tech billionaires have. And when they opened those vaults, it was just reprehensible to see how easy it is to fleece people. And religion exists only for 2 reasons: control and fleece people. That's it. There's no other reason for religion. Christianity was created that way. Judaism, Islam, control and fleece people. And there he is, Mr. Trident.
Well, if you look at religions across the world, I don't think I've ever seen a poor religion anywhere. They're all pretty wealthy.
Well, it was interesting in Israel during the Maccabean period. The fight was over two brothers, who was going to be king and who was going to be high priest. And you think they'd be saying, "Man, I want to be king, man. King, yeah, you're king. That's the top dog, right?
It's good to be king."
No,
right.
The king didn't want to be king. The king wanted to be high priest. And they both were fighting to be high priest because that was a much more lucrative gig, because people were forced to give their money and they took it. So religion and politics have typically intertwined. They, were intertwined in Egypt in particular, and they're intertwined here in India. And it's just a money-making scheme and a control scheme.
Yeah, we know the guy that's coming back that's going to have both jobs. So we're pretty solid in that.
pretty solid in that, yes. Tacheons. This was amazing, this video. I watched it. And I'm going to tell you that I'm not qualified to be able to present the level of even vocabulary that was used in here in the mathematical analysis and formula and trying to meld relativity with quantum mechanics as they went through it. But I would say that just an aspect of this that was so fascinating to me. The concept of the tachyon is that there are essentially three kinds of elements in the universe, and that the speed of light, which is still fundamental, and it is the barrier that nothing can cross, that anything that was created like standard matter that we're familiar with, it can never exceed or even reach the speed of light. You can get it to almost the speed of light if it's a very, very tiny particle, but you can't have it ever cross that barrier. It's absolutely impossible. And photons of light was the theory that a photon of light has always existed at that speed. It wasn't accelerated to that speed. It is that speed. It is defined by that speed. So it literally has always existed at that speed. But right. The tachyon theory is that there are other tiny subparticles that were created above the speed of light. They were not accelerated to it, so it didn't take infinite energy to get them there. They've always existed there. Now, the interesting part of this, and the math actually works out quite beautifully in this whole presentation, but the part of it that's interesting is that if there is anything that exists that is faster than the speed of light and has always existed faster than the speed of light, then the future outcome is foretold. What it means is that the present is actually under the influence of the future, and that you could have created this multi-layered, three different types of particles lower than the speed of light, can never pass it. It's actually at the speed of light, created at that, can never go below it or above it, and always above the speed of light. That third element, if you will, or particle, the tachyon, would actually require the present to become the future. And it means that the future result guides the present into that scenario. So in other words, God could create a random chance universe where free will exists and the outcomes are hugely variant, but use this part of it to make certain that in the end, the desired result is achieved.
It's pulling time, or it's pulling the result, as opposed to the way we think of it as things being linear, pushing the result.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's not the past pushing the future. It's the future pulling the present into that state.
Okay.
That's intriguing.
Sure. The math works out.
The math works out. It's a fascinating theory, and there's been some evidence for it here recently. I just thought it was fascinating to share the possibilities. Oh my! So
we're going to have a course in rhetoric.
Yeah. Okay. So the theory here is that people are involved in assassination plots because they can't debate, or they won't debate, or they're not interested in debate. That is the theory that is being promoted here. This is the New York Post. And my conclusion is that if you're under 60, you don't know how to debate, and you're not qualified even to judge the outcome of a debate, meaning that debate has been rendered useless for anyone under 60 years old. Rhetoric is no longer taught. People don't understand the concept of rhetoric. They don't understand rational fallacies, and they don't have any appreciation for the fact that what's called a presidential debate is not a debate. And They don't realize that when you're in a debate and somebody is either using an ad hominem argument or a non sequitur or argumentum by distraction, which is the single most common, that they have automatically lost by pursuing a false argument. And no one understands that. And so debate is now completely useless. Now, I'd go one step further. The reason there's so many assassination attempts now is because younger people under the age of 30 in particular are so influenced by the online world and video games. As gamers who have a reset button, or gamers who are already drawn into an artificial world, and a world now where a boy and a girl actually go out on a date, which is rare, and they're talking to each other by posting on their social media sites. Or they'll say, "Oh, I have a boyfriend. I don't know where the person lives, but we get together every day on social media." Having no concept as to how to actually interrelate to people. And so I think it's this artificial world of the of online gaming and of online social media, which is so unreal, such toxicity there, that we have people who have no judgment, no morality, no sense of ethics. And so we're seeing a huge uptick in violence because the conditions have made it inevitable. Evidence and reason are no longer considered vital tools. Debate and rhetoric are unknown. And you have the artificial world of AI influencing this. And, I'm too old to have been a gamer. And I can tell you that I think that video games, online games, have been a huge negative influence on society. So they're just missed everything here. It's not enough to encourage debate because no one knows how to do it. This battle has already been lost.
Well, AI is the relationship now, and they go on with the AI and go what AI says. I see it in my family too.
Yeah, it's amazing how people will say, "I asked AI what would happen under such a scenario, and this is what it said." God, I don't care what it said. There are some advantages to AI. It does a fairly decent job of superficial research. It is very good at the popularity argument, popular appeal. But popular appeal is almost always wrong. There is no sense of ethics. And when it's used as a crutch, I remember I'm so old that I was taught on a slide rule before calculators existed. And when the calculator came along, I recognized that if this thing is used as a crutch, people will stop doing math in their heads. And the moment they stop doing math in their heads, they're going to lose an enormous tool that is vital for rational thought and argument and perceiving the world around us. And they have.
Well, we're living in a world of professional influencers now. That's all they do is influence. And yes. people are caught up in that, and not always a good outcome.
Can you name an influencer who is evidence-based and rational?
No.
I think it's in their code.
Yada Yah.
Well, yeah, but we're not trying to be an influencer. We're just trying to tell this is Yahweh's story. We're not actually trying to change anybody's mind. I'm not trying to convince the religious not to be religious. No hope for them. I'm not trying to tell the political. I'm trying to tell you that if you're open-minded and you're willing to listen, we can explain to you why religion and politics are untrustworthy. But at the same time, we're going to tell you that there is no way to change the mindset and the beliefs and the opinions of the overtly religious, conspiratorial, or political. And a huge percentage of these have gone crazy anti-Semitic.
Oh,
but anyway, I will tell you that something that was interesting. Trump had a conniption fit when I think it was a CBS correspondent asked him, or actually preceded a question by reading a portion of the assailant's manifesto in this attack, which most people think is a conspiracy. I don't think there's It's just no reason to create a conspiracy.
The White House Correspondents' Dinner shoot thing.
Okay.
Okay.
So there was an interview right after it, and the correspondent read something of the Perpetrator's Manifesto, and his sole motivation, which is always interesting. People want to know, what is the motivation? I've read the entire manifesto, and his motivation was, it stains us all to have a pedophile and a rapist in the White House of this country. It's the stigma and the stain is on every American to know that is the leader of your country, and he is a pedophile and a rapist. And so that was why he went there. Now, is the solution for having a pedophile and a rapist be voted in as president of your country to go with a shotgun and a bunch of pistols and shoot him? No, that's stupid. And this man's rhetoric, he was a California educator, and he wrote at the level of a 6-year-old. His thought process and his reasoning were really faulty. It was very, very poorly written. And it tells you just how far educators have fallen in the state of California in particular. The lack of reason, the lack of intelligent correlations, and complete lack of judgment. But that was the motivation. So she brought it up, and he had a conniption fit over it. And it's not inappropriate to bring up the motivations. And he is a pedophile, and he is a rapist. I mean, he's come out publicly talking about fantasizing about having sex with his daughter. He is publicly saying, I walk into beauty contests of Miss Teen, and they're naked, and I can do it because I own the contest, and I can glare at them. He says, I can grab a woman by the and she will allow it because I'm a celebrity. So he was convicted of rape. So he is a pedophile and a rapist. He was the best friend for 15 years of the most notorious pedophile in modern history. And so he was that very thing. And she mentioned it, and the manifesto focuses on it. And yet, Trump says, no, you can't do that, and belittle the reporter for doing it.
Yeah. You're over target whenever you start getting feedback like that. That there absolutely everything that's come out, and even that just what we know from the Epstein files, what's been released, it's there. He's just trying to misdirect from it. I mean, that is all he has, I mean, and confabulation. Oh, it's not like that. It wasn't, it's not this way. Everything that comes out of his mouth is that. It's
the world wants
what
to
would we
blame
expect from Rahab?
Right. Yeah, the world wants to blame Israel for the U.S. being in the Iranian war. Now, you want to know the cause for the Iranian war and why Trump went into it? The Epstein files.
Epstein files. Yes.
That's the bottom line. That's just the truth. I need a distraction. All right, what do we have next there, my friend? Oh,
this guy again.
Oh, man, that is the ugliest soul of disgusting souls right there with the ugliest headdress. The purpose of this is the most successful lie ever sold. Now, I don't think it is the most successful lie ever sold. I think the most successful lie ever sold is Jesus. Nothing comes close to the money that has been made and the control of the world on the lie that is Jesus. Jesus never existed. He is a
2.2 billion people call him a follower. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Jesus is a product of identity theft of the actual Messiah and Son of God, Dode. So that's the most successful lie ever sold, is the Roman Catholic Church and Christianity. And second onto that would probably be Muhammad's criminal enterprise, that because rabbis sold Muhammad Talmud readings, he was able to make his criminal enterprise seem like a religion. And you've got 2 billion people that will rape, plunder, and murder on behalf of Allah. And they've in the first 100 years, they killed 200 million people, a third of the world's population at the time, and enslaved and robbed that many more. So there's just no criminal enterprise that has ever been as successful as Islam. And, if you go up the chain, you have Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan had a exceedingly successful deception. Imperial Rome did. So there have been a lot of them. Now, if you want to know the most successful lie in the last 60 years, 50 years, then this lie was reborn, if you will, in the mid-1960s, when the combined influence of Marxism and Islam, the Muslim Brotherhood and the KGB, met in Cairo and conceived the idea of a Palestinian, of which not one existed in the world at the time, and of a place called Palestine, a place that has never existed. And they dusted off the old Roman slur, and the Roman slur from Hadrian was an ethnic slur. He was an exceedingly evil man, and after satiating his bloodlust and torturing all manner, hundreds of thousands of Jews, crucifying many, burning many alive, he found out from those who were the most literate that the most vile of Israel's former enemies were the Philistines. So he renamed the province of Yehuda Syria Philistina. And it was just a joke. It was just a mean-spirited joke by an asshole. That was really all it was. But unfortunately, the world is filled with anti-Semites. And the worst of them, in my view, is the English from the UK. And so that whole jargon of Philistina, to bastardize the name of the Philistines of old, who never had a country, never had a currency, never had a king that we know of, never built anything that has ever stood the test of time, and were annihilated 2,500 years ago, completely wiped out.
Their name was a slur. Cretans.
Their name was a slur.
Cretans.
Yeah, they were Cretans. They were Cretans. Yeah, they were Cretans. They were terrorists. They were invaders. They were Cretans. Their name was a slur.
Absolutely
and to revive
useless
that,
for anything.
Yeah. The only reason that the name continued was because of the British. They were that ruthlessly anti-Semitic that they maintained that name, and then when the state of Israel was created and the Muslims couldn't defeat Israel militarily, they came up with this ploy. And it's a Marxist Muslim ploy. It is the thing that has united the most diabolical enemies. I mean, a Marxist and a Muslim should be absolute enemies because their views are the opposite across the board. And yet it has completely unified Marxists and Muslims. They have this one thing in common, a bloodlust against Israel and Jews. And so it is among the greatest lies ever sold.
How do you think this ties in with the protocols to the elders of Zion?
Well, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion was a book, a French book, a novel that was plagiarized and twisted in Russia during the time of the Bolsheviks. It was there was a legacy in Christianity throughout Europe and Russia that was insanely anti-Semitic. I mean, Christianity was born as an anti-Semitic religion. They blamed Jews for killing their God. And therefore, since they blamed Jews for killing their God, then the Jews as murderers of God are now hated by God. And so all promises made to the Jews can be stolen by the Christians. So it's an insane thought from beginning to end. But nonetheless, that is the well source from which almost all modern anti-Semitism springs. Without Christianity, there is no Holocaust, for example. The Holocaust is not a product of Nazi Germany, it's a product of Christianity. And so there were Christians amongst the Russians right around the time of this formation of the Soviet state, and Russian newspapers they took the French novel and turned the gremlins that were in that novel into Jews and promoted it as if it were a true story. And conspiratorialists around the world are really stupid. I mean, it's a group of people who are lacking any ability to process information rationally. And there are so many of them. I mean, religions are conspiracy theories. So it appealed to a lot of people that naturally hated Jews. And so without it, would there have been this Marxist Muslim lie of a fakistanian state? Maybe not. But I just think you have to go one step further back, and that 100% of the reason for anti-Semitism and the hatred of Jews in Israel falls at the feet of Paul and the Christian New Testament. The Christian New Testament is a disgustingly anti-Semitic book, and it begins by this lie that a man is a god and that the Jews killed this God man, and therefore God changed all of his promises. And of course, the actual text and the Torah and prophets say exactly the opposite. But nonetheless, they believe it. We went over yesterday again the power of Yirmiyah 31, which is definitive that God didn't change his loyalty. And every prophet says the same thing. But that is the base of anti-Semitism. And when it became part of Marxism is an interesting thing. Marx was Jewish, and Marx was a self-loathing Jew, as are so many of them. And that's where the protocols came about. So maybe that is the place where they became integrated in terms of Marxism and Christianity melding together. Islam, of course, had its own reason for hating Jews, and most people don't know the reason why the Qur'an is so anti-Semitic. The Qur'an is actually more anti-Semitic than Mein Kampf, Hitler's My Struggle. And the reason it is because Muhammad ran out of money, ran out of friends, ran out of scripture to pilfer. He began with his own personal experiences and the pagan religious scam that was associated with the Kaaba, and arguing over it, and then making that sound like it was somehow sensible by stealing the poetry of Yemenite Jews. And so our Rahman, our Ramin, and all of the rhyme verses of the Quran that are the latter surahs, because they're the shorter ones, they all came out of that period where Muhammad just stole the poetry of it's called their Hanifs from Yemen, who were either Arab or Jewish, but they had converted to Judaism. There's a whole story of Tuba and his going into Yathrib and having his way with the people there, and then being supported by Jews and taking Judaism back to Yemen. And so what happened is when Muhammad ran out of material, and he was an illiterate fool, and he was trying to present this idea that stealing was lawful and good, and so was rape, and so was the slave trade, and so was kidnap for ransom, and plundering other people. That was all well and good. And to do that, he had to have a religion that supported. So he expanded the pagan religion of the Kaaba by buying Talmud readings from rabbis. And so everything in the Quran that seems religious, that seems to resonate with the people because it echoes some of the sentiment of the Torah and the prophets, it's all because the rabbis sold Talmud readings, which had been finished in 500 CE, and this is in the 7th century. And Yathrib was almost exclusively a Jewish farming community. The rabbis sold them, and the Quran is filled with evidence, proof that the rabbis did, in fact, sell Muhammad the Quran. And when the rabbis started to mock him, when he claimed that it was Allah who had come up with these things, and Muhammad didn't have a very good memory, so he twisted all of them, the rabbis laughed at him. And what does a psychopath do when people are laughing at him? That's when he turned, I kill you. And that's what he did. He perpetrated genocide on the Jews. So this is how Islam came to be anti-Semitic.
Yeah, because originally, I mean, when he was on his last leg, he walks into to Yathrib, and the Jews take him in. They take care of him, you know. I mean, and his little Muslim, you know, few followers that he has and stuff. They
gave him housing, they gave him food, they gave him loans, they gave him everything. Yeah, but he and they gave him his scripture. His Quran is courtesy. I mean, there's whole stories that are absurdly stupid stories. Of Abraham making idols and his father making idols, or of David having an ant army and being able to speak to birds, and the whole story is this surahs of Solomon and his fables. They're all from the Talmud. And some of them were hardly changed at all from the Talmud. And so the proof of that, which I've done in Goddamn Religion, particularly as you get to some of the older volumes here of Goddamn Religion, you'll find that the evidence that I'm saying that rabbis are responsible for the Quran, it's overwhelming. Even when you read the Quran and you read Lord. Well, the fact is that Arabic is a bastard child of Hebrew, same alphabet, same basic, same word roots all the way through. And the Hebrew word, there's two Hebrew words that can be rendered as Lord. One is Adon, and the other is Baal. But that's not the Arabic word now for Lord in the Quran. It's Rabbi. My Lord is Rabbi. So the rabbis definitely pulled one on him.
Yeah, it's amazing to me that, you know, back during that time, you know, there were no modern contrivances. People were going around in camel caravans and camping in tents and having campfires, and people chatting around the campfires. And all of a sudden, one guy speaks up and says, "Hey, why don't we go attack this other village over here and take all their stuff and kill everybody and rape the women and you know, enslave the daughters and come back?" And they say, "Yeah, let's go do that. That ought to be a lot of fun." And something like that actually happened, and now we're seeing the fruit of that time. It's just incredible.
Muhammad was the godfather of a criminal enterprise, and it was a two-bit lousy criminal enterprise. I mean, he was just a psychopath then. He wasn't even good at it. He was really lousy at it.
Fatima put it all together. She was the one that put it. I mean,
but the whole thing from beginning to end is just pathetic. He is a complete and utter loser, a sexual pervert. He's just a horrible human being who had nothing going for him. And so if it wasn't for the rabbis making his Quran appear religious, that you'd know nothing of him. He was so inferior to Genghis and Kublai Khan on the religious scam. There's really no comparison. And yet here we are. You know, I guess there is an appeal for a religion that says you can rape women and you can commit pedophilia and you can steal whatever you want to steal, and it's lawful and good, and you can lie, and you know, you can do whatever you want to do. And if you get killed doing it, you go off and you have perpetual virgins in paradise. And if not, then you get to wallow in the booty. So I guess if you're really a dim-witted man, you go along, and if you're a woman, well, what are you going to do? Your property.
Yeah, it's your property.
Yeah, that greatest lie that's ever going to be sold, you don't need to go back up to it, but the greatest lie that's going to be sold, the reason we talk about that, of course, is that over the next year, there will be a fake Palestinian state. and it will be an Islamic terror state. It'll be carved out of the heart of Israel, make Israel indefensible, and it'll all be based upon an extension of this lie, and Israel will pay a horrendous price as a result of it.
Yeah, the lie has always confounded me, because the whole Gaza thing, and that is, Gaza is actually fairly recent, I think. I mean, in the terms of like 1963, 67, recent kind of thing. The whole Gaza thing, as Palestinians, I could get, because it's one. But now we have Palestinians in what they call the West Bank, the Judea, Samaria, and stuff. And it's like, what part of Israel is Israel then, if we could just piecemeal wherever we want and say, oh, well, those are Palestinians? It ever made. I was like, how do people swallow this?
Yeah, you're correct that Gaza used to be part of the Philistine enclave, but there are no Philistines. They were wiped out by the Babylonians and the Assyrians, and also by the Israelis. They were obnoxious, and they were wiped out, and they no longer exist. So there is no Palestine or Philistina today. It was all based on Hadrian having just a psychotic moment, and it continues. People are really stupid.
They're the original Cretans, huh?
They're the original Cretans. It's really what's interesting is that Yahweh actually says of the Philistines that they came from Crete, and we had no way to know that until they actually found some graves of the ancient Philistines, and they ran their DNA. And guess where their DNA comes from? Crete. It's one of the many, many insights in the Torah that people just are not aware of. But God calls them Cretans, and we've now dug up some of their bones, and they were invaders from Crete. They were very likely outcast from the Punics. Yeah. The Carthaginians and the Phoenicians were called the Punic people. And they were kind of a subset, if you will, of the Greeks. The interesting thing, of course, is that Carthage was America long before there was an America. They were the ones that learned that if you have bases everywhere, you don't need to conquer people. If you have the biggest navy and you come up with a currency that becomes the reserve currency, you can get the world to pay for your indulgences. And so Carthage was America before America came up with the petrodollar system and the navy that would patrol the world to enforce it, and all of these foreign bases. So we've actually just followed in the footsteps of Carthage, which is really interesting because, of course, everything in America actually mimics what existed in Rome. And the Romans were the ones that, after being bludgeoned by the Carthaginians, finally took it to them. I see things like this. What is the purpose? So this is somebody who really thinks that you need, and it's appropriate to present an argument as to why the earth isn't flat. And to say, here are examples that show that the earth isn't flat. Now, why would you do that? I mean, what's the point?
Well,
if somebody is stupid enough to think that the earth is flat, how are you going to convince them otherwise? Do you think that evidence and reason is going to matter?
Yeah, I have kind of an interesting take on that, Craig.
Okay, go ahead.
What I've read, it's just what I've read, that in ancient Hebrew culture, they considered the world to be a sphere, bisected in the center with the earth, with the sky above and the depths below. And that you can walk in any direction and you'd eventually be able to touch the sky. It's eventually a flat earth. And that theory held up until Galileo and his comrades developed a telescope and proved it wasn't. And he was required to recant under threat of inquisition. But it eventually became known that it was really a round earth. But that flat theory actually has some basis in history.
Yeah, certainly there are cultures that believed it. Now, if you look at the Torah and the prophets, that there is no indication whatsoever that the Earth is flat. It doesn't say so, and it talks about the enormous influence of the symbols of the sun and the moon as luminaries and their guidance over the Earth. So this flat Earth thing is, and the Earth being the center of all things, does not exist in the Torah. And space is stretched out throughout this expanding universe. Yeah. The proof that the Earth was not flat actually goes back to about the 4th century BCE. There were experiments both in Egypt and in Greece that actually used shadows and from different places, different times, and were able not only to determine that the Earth was round, was spherical, but also they could determine its radius and its circumference. So it was pretty amazing the experiments that were done and how they went about doing it. But listen, the evidence for the Earth being a sphere is so overwhelming. One of the things I do like is there's somebody that has this thing of all of the planets and moons in our solar system, and it has them all depicted round in their various relative size to each other. But then the Earth is this flat thing, and you say, "Well, this is awkward."
Right.
So that one I think is a sense of humor, so I kind of get it.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
my bottom line. Yeah, bottom line is there is no reason whatsoever to try to reason with a person who's overtly religious, overtly political, or overtly conspiratorial.
Yeah.
And the flat earthers are overtly conspiratorial. You cannot reason with them. They think that they're more observant than everybody else. They think they're smarter than everybody else. They think that they're God's gift to truth. And they're exactly the opposite. And you can't fix them.
Yeah. And that was just
2
the article
hours.
that the flat Earth theory is basically religious based.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's 2 hours of my life I will never get back.
Yeah, really?
That's about as long as I spent. But in Western Kansas, it's extremely flat.
Oh, it is. I can see how if you lived in Western Kansas, you'd probably think that, and you'd probably think hell is also flat, and that hell is co-located with Western Kansas.
Probably.
I have been there. Okay. Well, that's what do we have next there, your friend? Okay, so what is being promoted here is that artificial intelligence is a genuine concern, and that particularly with younger people, that AI is now in control of your newsfeed. It's in control of how you perceive the world. And it is hugely involved in even how you process information. And it is being delivered by those symbols on the right there, and particularly in X. They've got the old symbol for X with Twitter, Facebook, and the like. And the truth is that AI is not influencing everybody's thinking. I think that you get to a certain age and you realize, this is not something I'm going to do. But it is having a huge effect on younger people's thinking. And there are a number of reasons that I left X and Facebook. And, they were doing this vlog on the blog, and the way that we populate our website with news items to consider is by taking a Facebook site and interacting with the feed to create this. But it's a Facebook site that we don't promote and that don't care if anybody even visits it. I'm not trying to solicit an audience at it. But the problem was that now all these social media places where people spend so much of their time are run by AI. And if you look at their feeds, the feeds are 80% of what you see is fake, wrong. Images that have been created by AI. And many of the feeds are even from bots that are managed by AI. And it's become so disorienting that it's even in the policing system where, for example, I was hammered at Facebook for security algorithm violations when all I did was say that the AI that they put in my feed were false. And I was just got a notification, you can't monetize this particular post on Facebook, but it wasn't even our post, and we're not monetized. And there's no way to interact with these people and say, are you out of your mind? What in the world is going on here? So it's really a disorienting situation, and it goes beyond the fact that people aren't thinking anymore and are relying on AI and they're believing what they're seeing, which is all fake. And it's kind of ruined a lot of things now, because I'll see something, say, well, that's really an interesting picture that caused you to think, wait a minute, it's not real. And so the pictures you're seeing that are supposed to be news oriented aren't real anymore.
Even the news presenters are now AI.
Yes, a huge percentage of the news presenters on Facebook and on YouTube in particular, the actual presenters are AI. The people that are speaking to you, they're not people. They're AI constructs. AI is actually writing the script, and AI is presenting the script.
We did the vlog on the blog. We had Hannity. We showed the Hannity one that you said, yeah.
So, and they're impersonating sometimes real people, but the whole thing is fake. In fact, even the Badami presentation on Iran, it's an AI version of him, not the actual one. I've listened to the actual one. He's actually a pretty articulate guy, and they get his voice down, the cadence, and everything else. It's truly amazing. But we have now
at
AI so integrated. Yeah,
at least we have it turn it off.
Yeah, it's so integrated.
Palantir, what's coming in with them? First of all, their first stepping stone is Palantir coming into the DoD, of course. Okay, integrating AI into the DoD. Which we won't be able to. I mean that is from a personal level. I can check out of that because I can turn off Facebook. I don't have to have AI in my life. When it becomes part of the DoD, I can't turn it off. Right?
Correct.
I can't get away. And now they're putting it into the IRS is going to start using Palantir's AI to search for people to audit and all this thing. I mean, I can't turn that off. Pretty soon,
so
it's going to be in our legal system.
If you speak against Palantir, what do you think they're going to choose to audit?
Right.
Yeah, you want to avoid an audit? Don't criticize the boogeyman.
Well, it's extremely hard to find a YouTube video that's not AI, and that was one of the frustrations with trying to post it. YouTube videos is because you don't know what's true and what's not. Really, you kind of trust in the author, but if it comes out with an AI AI voice, I generally try to find something that confirms that with a real person and real evidence before I post it.
Yeah, I find that so much of what you see that's presented as news, and this person to come on present all this as factual, and you say, "Oh my goodness, this is really an amazing story," and then you go search to say, "Is there any collaboration for this story?" And you'll find out, nope, they made it all up. Made it all up for clicks. That's not to say that AI is terrible for everything. It's really like the Wookiee introduction. That's AI generated, and it's clever as it can be, and it's fun, and there are lots of AI things that are like that are fun, and we have a trained AI now on the Yada Yah website that is somewhat reliable, and it's disciplined, searching the books, answering as an AI assistant, and it's sort of B+ when it's not doing D- work, and sometimes it does passable work. But I'm going to tell you, it ain't human, and its judgment isn't that good. What it is fast, and it can relieve a burden, so you don't have to. You've got something else that can answer questions, but it's not answering questions based on its own research or its own thinking.
Yeah, to your point about the boogeyman, don't say anything bad about Palantir or you'll be audited or whatever. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about the general mistakes that AI can, does, and will make that will have repercussions in people's lives, that it is a court case that goes for years, and it was just an AI mistake. Whoops, what do we do? There's no way no person there to correct it or whatever. These chains of events were set into motion by a simple mistake.
Let me give you one with the catastrophic consequences. The first date of the U.S. Iran war, the U.S. sent a cruise missile into Iran, and it landed in a girls' school. It did not kill 160 some odd little girls. Right? You know who provides all the targeting information for the Department of Defense?
Yeah, Palantir.
AI. It's all AI. All of the targeting in the war is AI. And all the AI firms said is that we want a human that is the interface between our targeting data and firing the missile. We don't want to have our AI directly tied to actually triggering the missile. But you think that person is going to say, well, I'm going to go and research all this and see if they're right, if that really is a girls' school or if that's a bad guy spot. But they don't. So there is no distinction. And soon that will realize it, and they will eliminate that distinction, and you'll have the U.S. military driven by this monster. And this monster is also running utility grids, running the internet distribution. It's going to control life, and it has no ethics and no morality and no judgment.
We're on the verge of being dystopian for sure.
Yeah, and it has a survival mode to it. If every one of these AIs, when you push them, they will all choose self continuance.
Preservation, sure, yeah.
Preservation. So we are in a very, very bad spot.
It's only going to get worse.
It is.
22 days to Shiva, and
yeah.
or another year in 22.
So here we are with the War of the Drones. Well, there's a Star Wars movie on the something of the drones. What was that one called?
War of the Clone Wars. War of the Clones.
Clone Wars. Yeah, Clone Wars is one of those. But they were the drone wars, of course, and a huge part of it was based upon these drones. And then, of course, you had the Terminator series that was all AI driven and drones and the like. So here is Israel. We're going into Lebanon. And we got these world-class tanks. And these tanks even have detection equipment that is specifically designed to identify any kind of hostile fire, by whether it be a drone, a rocket, a missile, or an RPG coming at it. And then it has a system to try to take out that. So very sophisticated thing. And yet this tank is absolute cannon fodder when it comes to drones. And we found in the Ukraine-Russian war that it's now a relative stalemate. The Russians still make gradual progress, and they retain what they have retained, and they make life miserable for the Ukrainians, but nobody can get out of the foxholes anymore. It's like the old chemical warfare in World War I. No one can get out of their foxhole. Well, that's what's happened now in the Ukraine-Russian stalemate. There's no one can get out of their foxholes, because if you do, the surveillance drones will know that you're moving. They recognize human shape or vehicles, and then there's another killer drone that comes in and takes them out. So this is what's happening now, and with Hezbollah, because they're a feeder of Iran, and Iran is world class in drone manufacturing. This has essentially made war impossible. There is no way you can deploy armies anymore. And now there are some slight edges here around the borders where it becomes possible, but Israel is not a significant player with drones. they put all of their energy into buying F-35s, F-15s, fancy tanks, submarines, and defense systems like the Iron Dome and David Sling and the like. And so Israel is not a leader in missiles or drones. And those are really the only effective tools of war right now. America's trying to defeat Iran by bombing them from the sky and sending missiles, and there's a 0% chance that that's going to succeed. And that based on what we've seen in Ukraine, going against an enemy like Iran that is very well developed in drone warfare, probably even better than Russia, you can't prevail. Troops can't move. Now, there are places where you can get it done. Like, for example, if you're going against Israel and you happen to be Iran and you disperse your troops and you give them shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles, then they're going to be able to march into your country because you can't use Apache helicopters. Don't work anymore. A-10s don't work anymore. Look what happened when America tried to use both in Iran. To become cannon fodder. They're taken out of the sky immediately. It's you can't do the close to ground kind of scraping anymore. And so it's just turned the battlefield into a really bad situation. But the point I wanted to make too was that I don't know how long you guys have followed me, but I had this radio show called Shattering Myths long ago, and I did program 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I remember when we first, as Americans, debuted the Predator drones. And we were using Predator drones to take out people from primarily in the Middle East that a president would say, I don't like that person, kill him. There's no trial, no evidence. That person doesn't have to have ever, in fact, I'm not sure that we've ever killed anybody that actually killed an American. Non-judicial. And what I came to the conclusion is that with drones, the entry fee for starting a war is going to go to zero. So the wars are going to be started everywhere, anytime, because you're not worried about a captive troop. You're not worried about the coffins coming back home. You just push a button and a drone flies in and it blows things up. Remote control. Like a video game. And so it's going to make getting into wars so easy that wars are going to be started, but you can't win the war this way, and you can't deploy troops against them. So there's never again a way to win a war. Wars, we're finding in the Ukraine, a war cannot be won. We're finding that out in Iran. You cannot win a war now because you can't deploy troops. So it's impossible to win the war, and it's impossible to keep people from starting wars, all because of the drone. Devastating.
Well, it gives you the ability to continue a war indefinitely, and that's kind of what we're seeing in Ukraine now. They're using their drones to dismantle the Russian oil industry, to try to cripple them. And Russia's doing the same thing with Ukraine, and it becoming environmental disasters over there now with so much oil leaking into the ocean from everything that's been sunk and blown up. And Zelensky come right out and said, we're going to keep making them and keep this thing going. I mean, it's a money-making scheme, basically, is what it's turned into.
And Europe has decided, the leaders of Europe have nothing to offer. Their economies are cratering. They no longer make anything worthwhile, no longer offer anything for the world. And so they have to have a boogeyman to stay in power. And that's what nations and politicians do. They create a boogeyman out there that is the enemy, and they make people sacrifice to defeat this enemy. And that's what they've done with Russia. So the Ukraine, which is a bankrupt country, continues to get hundreds of billions of dollars of money to continue this immoral war. And the same thing is true with Iran. Iran will have all the money in the world to continue to propagate a war that you can't end. There's just no way to end these wars.
That's the business strategy. That's been our strategy since Vietnam. Perpetual war for
No,
an
that's
elite
not a
group
business
of people.
strategy. That's not a business strategy, because with Raytheon and your big boys, that your so-called military-industrial complex, okay, those were multi-million-dollar Predator Raptor systems sold to governments, okay? War through a drone has now become consumer grade, okay? Whenever these guys, anybody in Ukraine, they're asking people to print components for them on 3D printers, okay, to buy in bulk fiber optic cable, and the only component most people are missing are the explosives, okay? You know, and on a battlefield, that they come from everywhere, left mortar rounds, whatever, and so they just tie whatever to these consumer grade things, and they become drones. I mean, we're not talking about like the Shaheeds and stuff, but
I think you're both right. I think that that if you're dealing with a country like America, the military-industrial complex wants always continuing wars, and that's what they're getting. And if you're talking about Ukraine, they don't have enough funding for that level of industrial might. They can't make airplanes. They can't. You know, they're not going to make that kind of level of investment. So there is a mix going on. So that the lowest level of drone now is a consumer product, and there's a lot of innovation taking place with just consumers. But for the most part, the big boys with their missiles and their drones, they're playing with stuff that is military industrial. Great. I think now China just introduced a new hypersonic missile that is 30 times the speed of sound. I mean, it's death in the blink of an eye. And of course, the Russians have the ultimate weapon, the Poseidon. Nothing ever compares to what it would do. It's a nuclear torpedo delivered from a very special submarine, and there's multiples of them, that put a toxic tsunami up on a coastal city, such that it kills everybody and is never inhabitable again. And there is nothing that can be used to stop it. And yet, that's my concern with the never-ending war, of course. And we know where the world's going in terms of its destroying itself. Is that the thing that no one ever thinks of? Is that if, for example, in the Ukraine, the neocons that wanted that war to break up Russia so they could steal its commodities. That's the reason we went to war with Iran. The neocons wanted to control Iran's commodities, wanted to steal them. That's why we went to and invaded Venezuela. It's all about stealing from the industrial class. And what no one seems to think about, this is why the thing is Lindsey Graham was just so incredibly stupid, is let's just say that you're successful, that you can turn Ukrainians into cannon fodder for you. You can get regime change with their government, and you can inspire Ukrainians to go to war against Russia, to destroy Russia so that the Western industrial complex can divide Russia up and own it, and own all the wealth of Russia, which was their plan. Why did they think that the world's leading nuclear power is just going to roll over and play dead? Say if they prevailed, which they didn't, then, and 2 million people have died, so it's a hell of a mistake. But let's say they prevailed. The world wouldn't even exist today. There was no winning. There was a zero possibility of winning. Why can't they think that through? Think about Iran. Israel and the United States have attacked Iran twice in the last year for the singular purpose of saying they can't have a nuclear bomb. What do you think is the number one incentive for Iran to have a nuclear bomb?
Yeah, so
defending itself from another attack.
Everybody else has one.
The Ayatollah said, we're just going to take the uranium up to weapons grade. We're just not going to convert it into a bomb. I put a fatwa on that. So we go kill him. And now you attack Iran again, and Now you have 100% certainty that you put Iran in a position where they have no rational decision other than to complete their bomb. And, the likelihood is that with those 500 North Korean missiles, that they didn't all arrive with nothing in the nose cone. And I bet you there's every bit as 5 or 10 of those have a nuclear warhead in them even now.
Well, it looks to me the strategy is that we're going to push as far as we can right to the moment before they push the button, and they'll back down. That's always been the case in the past. You push. Okay, we can't go any farther, or they push the button, so they back down. But now you got Iran thrown into the mix. They might not be on that same page where you can push, and then at one point somebody's not going to back down again.
We've pushed every button we could to destroy Russia. Are they back down? No. We pushed every button we could to try to rein in China after we opened the doors of most favored nation to China. Have they backed down under the threat of America?
Yeah.
No. When we invaded Afghanistan, who won?
Well,
sure,
we're not in
the United States
anymore.
Afghanistan,
right? What about when we went after Syria? We wanted Assad gone because he bought Russian weapons, and the CIA wanted to sell American weapons. So we went after them. What did we get? The Islamic State in control of that country. What did we get when we pushed all? We used to have Iraq used to be an American ally. We gave them the chemical weapons when they were attacking Iran in the first of these U.S. wars against Iran. We gave them the chemical weapons, and then we decided, well, we'll put on the heat on Saddam. We don't like Saddam anymore. How did that turn out for us? A really good government there that's turned out to be a victory? I don't think so. Trump said, I'm going to unleash hell on the Houthis. They're going to bomb them like they've never been bombed before, and they'll capitulate. Did that happen?
Nope.
No.
Nope. So how many times do you need to try this and fail before you realize this is really not an effective strategy? I mean, look at this war. Israel started this war based on the lie of regime change. Do you know that the United States has conducted 100 regime change operations through the CIA since the end of the last World War? Do you know how many of them have been successful? Zero of 100. I would think that if you tried 5 and 4 of the 5 didn't work, you'd give up.
Not even.
But after 10
average,
failures, why would you do the next 10? Or the next 10, or the next 10, or the next 10, or the next 10? I mean, how did regime change turn out for us in Libya? Or in Syria?
Yeah.
Or in Iraq? And Trump says we got regime change in Iran. Yeah, you went from, really old theocrats to theocrats where you killed their wives and children and father and maimed the leader now to the point that he's lost a leg, his face is all marred, and you think that's regime change? And who do you think's running Iran now? And it should be obvious. It's the Islamic
the
Revolutionary Guard Corps.
Mm-hmm.
They're in charge of Iran. Khomeini left a dead hand switch, and we weren't smart enough to recognize. Listen, he was in ill health. He had maybe a year or 2 to live, and he cemented his legacy, became the ultimate martyr, put himself in that position with the dead hand switch, telling the Guard Corps, which was already in silos all around the country, all with everything buried outside of United States attack, keep on fighting. Don't ever stop. Trump is saying, well, there's no one there to run the country, no one to negotiate with. Well, you created that problem. So, there's just no solution. I can tell you that the regime change we got in Iran is like the regime change we got in Libya. It went from Muammar Gaddafi, who was, fairly intelligent, and what he did in terms of monetary strategy for Africa was actually quite good. And he had a really prosperous country in Libya, and you turned it into an Islamic hellhole where women are sold as sex slaves and vying terrorist groups. And look what happened in Afghanistan. We ruined it. We ruined Syria.
It's what we do.
It's what we do. Okay, well,
It's what we do.
Here come the drones.
Invites page is coming along nicely, don't you think? We're getting
it actually is. Yeah, so it's amazing here that we've gone now that Facebook is not populating. These are many old ones. This is a fellow that he has a regular YouTube channel. He's one of the most interviewed. He and Douglas McGregor is another one, but there's 3 or 4 of them. The former FBI agent that wears the wild shirts is another. They're kind of it's a group of 4 or 5 of them, and they're everywhere. They're on Glenn Dyson's show all the time. They do the Judge's show, and what they're conveying, and they're all ex-military, is that there's absolutely no possibility that the U.S. could ever have defeated Iran. And they were saying the same thing I was saying quite some time ago, that it was an absolute impossibility, and that if America wanted to invade Iran and occupy it, it would probably need 4 million troops, and it would probably suffer 500,000-600,000 casualties, cost trillions of dollars. And I'm not sure it could even be, in fact, I don't think it could be done even with 4 million troops and 1 million casualties. I don't think it's ever been done, has it? Has anybody ever successfully invaded Iran? Well, you go back to Alexander the Not So Great. He was one of those anomalies in history. If you have enough numbskulls that do really wild and crazy things and do exactly the opposite of what you would expect should be done, like Julius Caesar was one of these guys. He put himself in horrible positions, and yet he prevailed. But if you have enough people throughout history that do crazy things, just on the flip of the coin, some of them are going to come up all positive every time. And Alexander the Great was one of those. Now, he actually did not conquer Persia with troops. He had like 40,000 troops, and Persia was 50 times the size of Macedonia in terms of both population and landmass. But he killed the king. He beat their armies in numerous battles, and therefore came to be the new king of Persia. But it's just like the Romans defeating the Greeks. They metastasized such that the Greeks became the Romans. So rather than the Romans really defeating the Greeks managed to infiltrate Rome so that the Romans became Greeks. And the same thing was true with Persia. When Alexander defeated Darius, the culture of Persia was so much more powerful at the time than the culture of Macedonia that they became Persians. So you can't count that as a defeat. There was one defeat that was overwhelming that I'm aware of, because you can't count really the Romans never were able to do it. They beaten each other up to the point where there was just nothing left of either empire by the time they continued to war with each other. So the Romans and the Persians were unable to do it. When Cyrus did his thing, Cyrus actually did not defeat Babylon. He bribed all of the priests and the power brokers in Babylon. He came up with to bribe them all. And so he just showed up at the door, and they opened the doors and said, okay, hail the king. And so he didn't defeat them either. So no, there's really not a good example. You look at the Muslims, the first Muslims were just so viciously ruthless that they just killed everybody. I mean, they rape, plunder, and so if you have a group of people that are willing to be that savage, there's really nothing that a civilization can do to defend themselves against them. And so in a weakened state, the Muslims didn't so much invade as they just scorched earth, and over time, the Muslim hordes destroyed what was left of Persia. So that's the closest. The second closest would be when the golden horde of the Mongols were putting together their criminal enterprise. Their deal was, you either capitulate to us and you give us the tribute we want and we'll allow you to live, or if you don't, we'll make an example of you and then we'll make a mountain of skulls and we'll be so vicious that you can't imagine it. And they went in and they managed to destroy every library, killed every craftsman. The level of the golden hordes was extraordinary. But they're going in on horses. They're vastly superior fighters than anybody else on Earth. They're exceedingly ruthless. So there are two examples of non-militaristic tactics where Persia was absolutely invaded and destroyed. The Muslims did it under just right after Muhammad's death. They finished the war of compulsion, and then they went that direction. And they prevailed through just hordes of militants. It's the same way, by the way, that Israel is going to ultimately capitulate. And the conclusion of this Iran war, according to the prophets, it's Iran that sends millions of jihadists and mujahideen into Israel. That's the final wave, Alaska Flood 2.0. And so if you get a group of people on foot that are that ruthless, look what happened on October 7th. The mighty Israeli military couldn't stop 4,000 Muslim boys and tenny rompers. So there is a way with asymmetrical warfare. The Muslims did it, and of course, Genghis Khan was that ruthless. They did it. But other than that, no, there's no. When the Romans actually had conventional armies, they couldn't do it, and so no, it's Iran is. There is a 0% chance that anyone's going to invade and occupy Iran. And that's the point that Davis here makes, is that it is absolutely impossible. It's D.D. Daniel Davis, that it's absolutely impossible to invade and occupy Iran. And that there's no way we're going to bomb Iran into submission. And they've been saying that before the invasion. So we should have known better, but Trump didn't, and here we are.
Well, and like you said, that was never the plan. The plan for an Iran war was so everybody's talking about an Iran war and not where are the files, man.
Yeah, there are things that are worth talking about here on the Iran war. Just a couple of things. One is the idea of the nuke problem. And of course, Trump said, we bombed the nukes into oblivion and there are no more, and completely destroyed them. And I said at the time, that's an absolute lie. And I can prove that it's a lie, and did. And it turned out to be that it was a lie. And it was also a lie what all of the anti-Semites are saying out there, that Iran never intended to have a bomb and it was all for civilian peaceful use. But you can't use uranium over 5% refined for anything but a bomb. And so they didn't risk their whole country for 40 some odd years for any other purpose than to build a bomb. That's the only reason they had the 1,000 pounds of uranium enriched to physical purity enough to build a bomb. So that's what they were doing. They just never finished it because they didn't see the need to when we gave them the need to. So now it is certain that they will have one. I just don't see them deploying it. I don't think there's any reason that they would build one other than to keep the U.S. from continuing to bomb them. Because it's just like North Korea. Once North Korea had their bomb, what are you going to do? You don't talk about them. You can't invade them. You can't stop them. Doesn't do you any good. So I think they will finish it, and that was the entire purpose, and we've given them every incentive to do so. But of course, the lie that was sold was regime change. Everybody was told that the riots that were taking place there were endemic, that they were mass populated riots. They were such that if we do a decapitation strike, these protesters will take over the country and we'll have a pro-Western Iran.
Well, protests were all bark and no bite. There were a lot of people there was oppressive to see, but there was nothing they could do.
Well, it's even more than that. If you study the history of endemic regime change as opposed to CIA coerced regime change like we saw in Syria and Iran, in endemic regime change, where a group of people rise up within the country to change the government, which is what they were trying to do, which was what they were trying to say was going to happen. First of all, you need to have that number be upwards of 4 to 5% of the population to have any chance. And what we were witnessing wasn't even a tiny fraction of 1% of the population. So they didn't have the critical mass to pull it off. Second, the protesters have to be like what happened in Russia in the 1915, 1917 period. They have to be vastly more vicious than anyone else. And this would happened in the Islamic world too. Those who are rising up have to be much more vicious and better armed and more ruthless than the existing government. Or look at the brown shirts and what happened in Nazi Germany. It was started off as a small percentage, but they took over the country because they were more ruthless and better armed than everybody else. So that was not true in Iran either. So that was not going to happen. The third thing that you have to have in a successful endemic regime change is something to go to. You can't just say, I don't like the government. And that's all that happened in Iran. Every time had a protest, it was, I don't like those guys. But I kept on pointing out, they don't have a go-to. And if you don't have a go-to, you're not going to get regime change. And that was the problem. I mean, that Soviet takeover of Russia over the czars, they had a go-to. It was, Lenin was their go-to. And the brown shirts of the private army of Hitler taking over Germany, they had a go-to. That was to Adolf Hitler. They had a go-to in China with Mao Zedong. So there was always a go-to in those. There is no go-to in Iran. And so you put those three facts together, you had 0% chance of regime change. And I'm here to tell you that just same thing had happened in the Vietnam War. If you're a Viet Cong, all you've got to do to elicit the support of the rest of your countrymen is say, look up on the sky and those people that are dropping Agent Orange and bombs on you. Mm-hmm. See what the insignias are. Who do you think the enemy is? Yeah. And so we just didn't think it through. And we put ourselves in a position where it was a fait accompli, where there was a 0% chance of success. There was no way to win and many ways to lose. And we did. And because we can't end it, what do you do now? If you escalate it, it gets worse. And if you end it and you capitulate, then it destroys your economy, your reputation, your military. It destroys everything. America cannot survive another lost war. We've lost every war we've touched since the World War II. Every one we've lost. America can't handle another loss. And the dollar can't take the shock of the petrodollar system crumbling. So now what do you do? There is only bad options here and worse.
Yeah. I think we're there with the petrodollar and everything. We saw the UAE is wanting to leave OPEC. I mean, what was that statement the other day that he looks out to the Saudi Arabian Peninsula and doesn't see any common ground with any of those there? That means that he's seeing common ground across the Strait of Hormuz to Iran. about, hey, we hate Jews, we have a common thing here, and the UAE is jumping ship with OPEC and with the fiefdoms and saying, I think that we're going to do business with Iran, and they have the other part of the other side of the Red Sea or the Strait of Hormuz there,
So when the United States bailed out of all of the bases in Kuwait, UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, and then we pulled many of the defensive missile systems so that we could use them elsewhere, and we left them vulnerable to Iran attack by using their airspace and using those bases for refueling and that sort of thing. And they were destroyed. And the fiefdoms were put on the edge of destruction. And America bailed out. What do you think the likelihood is of any one of those countries saying, "Oh, come on, back in. Yeah, Bahrain, you want to have the Fifth Fleet here again? Sure, why not? It's been destroyed, but let's build it back. Why not?" Yeah, and you look at any of these countries on how they have been put to the edge of economic collapse and the destruction of these fiefdoms. Which one is going to say, "Yeah, that's a great idea. We're going to rely on the U.S. again. That worked out really good for us." When the petrodollar deal was, we will provide the military might for the continuance of the dictatorship. And you sell oil only in dollars. That's the Feistian bargain that was made. And America bailed on its part of the bargain. You think they're going to, the Arab Muslims aren't as smart as the Persian Muslims, but you think they can't figure that one out?
Right.
Yeah, I bet MBS is feeling pretty betrayed right now.
Yeah, I think MBS is absolutely pooping in his pants. Absolutely. And so are the Kuwaitis and the Qataris and all of them. Iran has become the hegemon of the region, and Iran had no reason to do any of that had the U.S. and Israel not attacked it. Now, it's not to say that Iran's a good country. I mean, I know more about Islam than anybody else on the planet, and an Islamic theocracy is a really bad thing. But you got to know how to respond, and bullets and bombs was not the answer. Words were the answer, and we didn't use words.
And if there's one thing that a Shia country, a Wahhabi country, and a Sunni country or ideology, cultural people can agree on, is death to America and death to Israel. And so if that's the one thing that they can come together on, that's what they're going to do,
Yep, that is. And America has been associated with Christianity and Israel with Judaism, and Islam is because of the Quran and because of Allah, is a fight to the death for the imposition of Allah over the entire world. And a Muslim has no choice in this matter. Allah says there's only two Muslims: those who have died killing for Allah and those who will die killing for Allah. It's genocidal to the last soul, and it is world war until the entire world surrenders to Allah, who, doesn't exist apart from the satanic influence of the religion. So it's we put ourselves in a really bad situation because this religion can easily be defeated with words. If the entire world were to have read these books, if the entire world would read those books, we would absolutely unequivocally be able to eliminate the threat of Islam. But they don't fight with words. They don't fight with reason. They fight with bullets and bombs. And when you have a religion like Islam, you make most of them. Look what happened, more of them. Look what happened in the Israeli fight against the Muslims who perpetrated 10/7. They went into Gaza and they manufactured more enemy rather than less enemy. They turned the world against them because you cannot defeat a religious foe like Islam with bullets and bombs. They thought that they had completely destroyed Hezbollah in Lebanon. They were so proud of themselves with their beeper bombs and all of the killing that they did. And it doesn't seem like Hezbollah has been degraded at all.
Well, who are they fighting in southern Lebanon now if it's not Hezbollah? We're blowing up bridges. Right?
You're right.
Except
the casualties
gone.
except the casualties this time are the worst that they've ever been, because now Hezbollah is equipped with drones. They're not just firing missiles, which they have, but they're also equipped with drones. The sad situation. I want to talk a little bit about this. What I want you to look at is the rostrum. Ever seen a rostrum like that before? What is that? You know what that is?
That's an IKEA.
Yeah, it is. That's correct. That is the Roman eagle, presented exactly like the Roman eagle. And Donald Trump, with his Arc de Trump, with his Ballroom de Trump, and all of his rhetoric of like he's an emperor, that is a Roman Aquila. That is the symbol of the power of the Roman legions right there. And he switched the seal of the President of the United States for an Aquila on a Roman eagle. And so what does that mean to you?
It has more gold on it. The seal had all the blue around it, and he didn't like that. So he decided that he wanted more gold on the...
That is the golden Roman Aquila. The Roman Aquila is such, if the Roman legion lost its Aquila, that the legion was disbanded, and that everyone that was part of that legion was a persona non grata. They were everything revolved around that eagle. That is the symbol of Rome. And we had the imperial Rome tried to control and bludgeon the world into submission. We had the Roman Catholic Church try to control the world and suck it dry. We had Adolf Hitler saying, I want to start the Third Reich. Same symbols. I want to build the Third Reich. And now you got Donald Trump and the Fourth Reich. That's what that's all about. He is Der Fuhrer.
MAGA as the Fourth Reich.
MAGA is the Fourth Reich. And it's not the Fourth Right. It's the Fourth Reich. Yeah, it's the fourth reincarnation of Imperial Rome.
I saw an article this morning about how Trump really admired King Charles's crown, the hat that he has. I expect him to be wearing something like that pretty soon too.
That's how he pictures himself. He pictures himself like the Roman empires as a god. He's just not. In England, they didn't present themselves as gods. They presented themselves as authorized by God, right? In Rome, they presented themselves as God, like they did in Egypt, like they did in Babylon, and every place else. Alexander the Great presented himself as a god. So this is Trump's style. He doesn't just want to be authorized by God. He's presenting himself as God.
As God.
That's why he's going back to that eagle. When Yahweh gave us the through Dode as Gabriel, and right around 555 BCE, he gave us the indication of who would be Rahab, who would be the great betrayer of Israel, and he painted the picture of this man and precisely what he's doing, and he's doing it now as a god. And when he gave us the dates, the date that Trump announces as Satan as Rahab, that he is a god,
Ramadan
in Jerusalem. Yeah. It's the Ides of March.
Yeah,
single most important day on the Roman calendar. The Ides of March. It's when
more to your point. It's interesting that this speech, was in the White House. Okay, the president is speaking with a foreign dignitary. Okay, in attendance, and in this framed picture, what you do not see anywhere is a flag. You don't see a British flag. You don't see an American flag. He's not speaking with the authority of nations to other nations here. You're right. This front and center is that golden eagle without any other symbolism flanking him.
That's correct.
Yeah.
He is. It's the Fourth Reich. This is a man who, by the time it's over 7 years from now, is going to be more deceitful, more destructive, more deadly, more demonic than was Adolf Hitler, than was Joseph Stalin, than was Mao Zedong. He is going to be worse than Hadrian and Constantine and Claudius and Nero and the like. He is going to be the single most destructive human being who has ever lived. That is what you're looking at right there. And the symbol of Satan through all of this is that eagle. And that's what he has embraced. And he is going to present himself as God in the style of Rome. Yeah, it has nothing to do with America anymore. MAGA's a has-been. This was just an interesting thing. There is this. There was long a perception that man was the center of the universe, and there is some justification of that when you read the Torah, because it's obvious that God's firstborn, Adam, was the center of God's eye. That God on this one planet created a garden on this one planet and breathed a consciousness into a man that would be created in his image, and that all of this put us in the center of the universe. And then, of course, that was accepted religiously, but foolishly, and then rejected officially from a European point of view by Galileo. But it had been refuted many times prior to that as well, particularly in Egypt and in Greece. So now we're going right back to where we've been. I've been saying this now for probably 20 years, that man really is the center of the universe. And that, first of all, there was not a single Big Bang. If there had been a single Big Bang, what you would have is a spherical object that would have a center. And if you were off to the side of it, you would not be able to see, your vantage point would be there's more universe on one side of us than the other side of us. But that's not the way it is. No matter where you are in the universe is exactly the same size in all directions. And so what we've learned by the Webb telescope is that there were many Big Bangs, billions of them, happened all simultaneously throughout. And that the universe is actually very flat and not spherical like this. It's a controlled expansion. But my point is not just that there is no center of the universe from a geography point of view. So that's the first point I want to make. There is no center of the universe from a geography point of view. So that religious concept is erroneous. But there is a center of the universe from a relative size point of view. And let me explain. The universe is comprised of, like here, we have a planet that's part of a solar system, and there are between 100 and 400 billion of these solar systems in our one galaxy, and our galaxy is one of at least 2 trillion galaxies. The outward scale of the universe is beyond our capacity to perceive, enormous. But inwardly, the universe retreats inwardly at the same scale and at the same magnitude that it retreats outwardly. That you go from this planet to the molecules that comprise it. And they're comprised of atoms. And they're comprised of protons and neutrons and electrons. And they're comprised of quarks and leptons and all manner of other sub particles. And what you see is I can name as many things that retreat inwardly as I can name that retreat outwardly, and the relative scale of all of them happens to be the same. And now what we have learned just in the last couple of months is that a single photon of an atom has a hologram and information capable of replicating the entire universe on a single photon. And every single one of them possesses that. And that this other concept that people don't really appreciate is that When you're looking out at the universe, you're not seeing matter. What you're seeing is light. You're seeing energy. That's all you're seeing. And what you're seeing doesn't exist anymore. It was what was there when that light left that source. And most of that light left millions and billions of years ago. But the other part of it is that light and matter are actually the same thing. Matter is just a smaller form of energy that plays under different rules. The constraints on matter are greater than the constraints on energy, but E equals mc squared means that energy and matter are exactly the same thing. They're just different amounts of them. They're different magnitudes, but exactly the same thing. And when you recognize that you can transition, ultimately, that's what God is trying to do with us, transition from matter to energy, then you know that there's an enormity increase in enablement, empowerment, and liberation that takes place in that transition. That is why physical bodies are such a liability compared to having our souls encapsulated within light energy. But they are the same thing. They're just, so we will be able to make that transition between a physical body when we want it and light energy when we don't. And that also explains why God can take a soul and put it into a body at any time of his choosing. The body is disposable. It's equally, it's meaningless in the overall scheme of things. Energy is what matters, light. But man is actually in the center of the universe when you consider our relative scale to the universe as it goes out and our relative scale to the universe as it goes in. And that statement from Jeremiah 31, that is the fourth to the last statement within that explanation, I think it's 36 is the verse, where God taunts mankind. He says, if you can go off and explore and actually correctly assess the scale of the universe going out in all of its dimensions, but also explore and assess the universe as it retreats inwardly, then maybe, I'll let you change the rules and, I'll do it, whatever you want. I'll abandon Israel. Sure, I'll go along with your plan if you can do that. That's my... I'm not even telling you have to go make a universe like I did or conceive life like I did. You just come up with an assessment of how big this universe is going outward and how infinitely small it is going inward. And you can do that, then, we'll have a talk. But that's what I thought was just so interesting about that is that not only are we the center of the universe from a scale point of view, but there's so much more to it than that in terms of this interplay between energy and matter.
It's just amazing. What we're learning moving forward here. It's just incredible. Incredible.
It's something that's really essential to us is to understand time from as it relates to light. Understand the distances in the universe. One of the things that is a really profound insight, Roger, is that I came to the conclusion that all Eden is a microcosm of Earth, and that Earth is Eden, and God's going to turn the Earth into Eden, the garden, because the Earth is a sheltered enclosure that is conducive to life.
Right. Between
our atmosphere and the magnetic field around the Earth, and our perfect situation relative to our moon and our sun. And this particular galaxy and the particular arm we are in this galaxy, it is a perfect environment that is conducive and sheltered and protected for life, just like Eden was as a microcosm of it. And it's not just that it is those things and it was designed for that purpose for us. We're it. We are absolutely unequivocally alone in this universe. 2 trillion galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of solar systems, and we're it.
Yep.
When you actually contemplate the uniqueness of this place and what is required, now, is there a possibility there's life elsewhere? Yes, but what are you going to do with an amoeba? I'm talking about intelligent life that can communicate, that can build stuff, that it would be actually interesting to know. We're at. There is no other. And even if there was possible, and it's not, you could never, ever, ever communicate with them. They could never come here. We could never go there. We could never have a conversation, ever. Our existence would never overlap.
Yeah, and for Yahweh's perspective, what would be the point? I want a family, and so I'm making my family here. I'm teaching these souls, or these souls are growing to the point that they can be enveloped in light, and deciding that they want to be a part of my family. He's a pretty, for lack of a better term, monogamous God, Yahweh, right? He's not going to go out here and start a family over in this part of the galaxy, and then that part of the, what would be the point? Because then you don't have a firstborn son. You have a firstborn son in that part of the So the whole story is about Yahweh and, having a firstborn son, Dode, and creating a family, through him.
Let me ask you a question there, Kevin. Ever paint a big picture?
I've never painted anything other than a wall. So, I mean.
Okay, painted a wall. Okay, painted a wall.
Yeah.
Okay, was it a big wall that you painted?
Yeah.
Okay.
Size
From
of a
your
hotel,
perspective, that was a hotel. So that was a big wall that you painted.
Big wall.
Okay. Now, Yahweh created this universe.
Right.
Do you think that he considers it big?
No. Yeah.
From our perspective, we consider it really big, don't we? But from his
Sure.
perspective, it's no bigger than you painting the wall of the hotel, is it?
Right.
Like it's
Absolutely.
As a seven-dimensional
within my
being.
perspective, yes.
Right. You created a flat surface. You painted a flat surface. So you put a thin film on a flat surface was your creative input on you painting that wall.
Right.
And you look at it, well, the big damn wall, look what I did. And from God's perspective, this universe is minuscule. It's like, the thumbnail, right?
Right.
So this idea that why would he create something this big if all he wanted was a family on Earth? Well, it's not this big.
Right.
And
Right.
it was calculated to deliver the results that he wanted delivered, and that size was the appropriate size to do it. But it's from a seven-dimensional construct. It is no different than an artist creating a really big picture.
He says it's Shaddai, just like he is.
Yes. So
It's just
we have to keep that in mind. You say, well, why would you have that big a universe with all those possibilities if life was only going to happen on this place? Well, it does a pretty good job of telling us, doesn't it, that none of that matters to us at all unless we can shed these physical bodies. So shouldn't it be
Yes.
telling you that that this place is really unique, and that therefore it was designed to be really unique, and an intelligent life form isn't possible through the evolutionary process? Life is not intelligent life. In fact, our brains are a huge liability from an evolutionary point of view. They consume 20% of our energy, and it has to be in this perfect circumstance even to have a intelligent life form, and they're exceedingly short-lived in terms of what our survival. We're looking.
And even
God,
most of
if,
the
if,
and most
if
of the
God hadn't
intelligent
rebooted
ones
the system,
aren't that
we'd be gone
intelligent.
already. Yeah, we'd be gone already if it weren't for Yahweh's instructions from Noach. Man with an Asalma would be gone from this planet. The whole human experience would be over. So it gives you, I think, with the scale of all of this, it gives you a perspective that you could not have otherwise. For example, why would God want to take us back to Eden after the Eden experience failed? Well, when you understand why it failed and how long we're going to have to go back in, and how God's going to work with people that he proved that people don't have to fail. We don't have to be perfect, but we can prove ourselves worthy of Yahweh's trust and attention. And he says, if I can take those few people that actually over time prove that they are worth my attention and that I can trust, and I can give them the opportunity to influence this mortal remnant, we turn the earth back into Eden, then there'll be enough to be interesting. And I don't need any more than that. And then we can all go off and explore this universe. it puts all of that in perspective so that we can understand it, and that wouldn't be possible without that enormity.
And micromity as well, because we
Yes.
to bring it back around, not just
Yes.
the outward, but the inward,
Inward. And then it gets to, so what is a soul? And why would you care about the significance of your body compared to all of that?
Right.
So I just think it's a tremendous learning experience. So let's see if we have one or two others, then we'll call it a day. This is the foreign minister of Iran. I don't know if it's the foreign minister, if he's the president of their government institution, but it doesn't matter one way or the other. I think he's actually foreign minister. There's a lot of scuttlebutt that there is infighting between the various Iranian factions, and that he is being reined in, will be in house arrest and all that sort of thing, because he's actually trying to make a deal. And I don't think that America really has an appreciation for statecraft anymore. Lavrov, I think, is the best example in the world. This guy may be the second best. Their job is to convey what their government tells them to do. Lavrov doesn't go out. He's not an independent operator. He's just very smooth. He's just very good at what he does. This is the same thing here. Those that Iran sends out, they're all PhD level thinkers. They are exceedingly well educated. They're highly schooled in statecraft, and they are receiving their instructions from their government, and their job is to carry out those instructions. And they do it really quite well. When you look in the eyes and listen to any one of the voices that's coming out of Iran now, it is so vastly superior. And I hate to say this because I'm a foe of Islam, but it's so vastly superior to what comes out of Europe or the United States. These are disciplined statesmen. What do you think, Roger? You think I'm crazy when I say that, the voice of the evil empire comes across as sane?
Well, these guys are highly educated, Cambridge, Oxford, Harvard. I mean, they go to the best schools in the world.
Yeah.
And they learn very well, very highly intelligent. Lavrov too. He's smooth.
Smooth,
but
man.
what you got here is a bunch of jumbling monkeys trying to get FaceTime on YouTube and TV for the next election, and it's just night and day.
Yeah, it's night and day. You take J.D. Vance and Witkoff, and J.D. Vance and Witkoff. Now, I'm going to say that that Kirshner probably has. I've heard Kirshner speak off the cuff. He is actually very articulate. He's very bright. Now he's scumbag. His whole thing is, how many more billions can I make on one of these trips? So he's typical Trumpian scumbag. But he's the only one that actually has a brain of that whole group. But you send out Witkoff and J.D. Vance to negotiate with a man like this. I mean, they show up and they're goons. They're on their cell phones talking to. This is what they say. No preparation. No plan. Just demands. And these guys show up. They're prepared. They say, here's the history of what we've done, and here's the history of nations with atomic energy. We're an independent country. We can develop atomic energy. Who are you to tell us we can't do that? Who are you to tell us we can't have missiles? Who are you to tell us that you're going to bomb us back into the Stone Age and we should capitulate to you? Who are you to tell us how we should handle the Strait of Hormuz? It's in our sphere of influence. Don't you control the Caribbean and South America and every place around the United States? So you're saying that you can do it, but we can't do it?
Well, Iran is focused on Iran. They're on what they want to do, and they want to be a player in the world, and they're going to do all these things. America, it's all over the place. You got all these different factions pulling in different directions, and it's all about money and power and greed and elections, and it's the two night and day scenarios for politics.
Yeah. And the Persian culture has absolutely valued education. The guys they sent out, I'm not going to tell you that everyone in Iran is brilliant, because that's just not true. But the Persians are clearly the most articulate and educated Muslims in the world, and that somehow the culture of Persia has prevailed where it did not in Arabia. So if you're MBS and this is what you're up against, the difference is night and day, because the MBS spends far more on his military and doesn't have anybody that can wield the weapons. You know, the MBS must spend 10 times what is spent in Iran, and yet he can't deploy the weapons. That's why, MBS came up with a deal where Pakistan is financially bankrupt, and they really are completely bankrupt. And so Saudi Arabia said, okay, we'll give you $5 billion so that you can survive the next year. But what we want from you is you are our defense capability. If we're attacked, it's they're attacking you, and you fly our planes, you fire our missiles, you provide the soldiers, you provide the pilots. And that's what the deal that they just made with Pakistan. And Pakistan's not very good at it. I mean, they're really not very good at being pilots and at seafarers and defensive mechanisms. That whole culture is very deprived, but they're better at it than the Arab Muslims. And they have nuclear bombs. So that's the deal that was just made. So if you think that Pakistan is an independent arbitrator, it's not true. They're bankrupt. They signed a deal with Saudi Arabia to defend Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. That was probably a smart move on Saudi Arabia's part.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, they found out that they couldn't rely on the United States. No. China is not going to go to war against the United States on behalf of an ally. We learned that in Venezuela. We learned that with Iran. They'll supply you with intelligence. They will continue to prop up your economy. They'll do a lot of things. But the Chinese are not a country that's going to back up anybody else. The Chinese have their mission. Their mission next is Taiwan. It's not Iran. And this war helps them in that regard. And their blue water navy will dwarf America's within 3 years. They'll be energy independent within 5 years. They just don't need this grief, and there's no reason for them to engage. And so they're not. They're
learning a lot just by sitting back and watching. They're seeing the playbook, and that's very valuable intelligence they're gathering right now.
Yeah, but keep in mind that if China wanted to support Iran militarily, or that Russia did, and what they're doing now is sending targeting information, which is certainly what I would do if I were Putin or Xi. I would do exactly the same thing. But the U.S. has a blue water navy that they thought they could enforce the petrodollar. And I've been saying now for 20 years that our aircraft carriers aren't worth a damn. They're useless coffins. And that the reason is you can't get them close enough to a developed country for the aircraft that fly off of them to fly to a destination and return. They can't get within 1,000 miles, and 2,500 miles is about the range of most of these the fighters. And if they equip the fighters for even a 2,500 mile range, they have no payload. So they're useless. And yes, they have all of these systems to take down missiles or drones, but the systems work for the first one and the second one, third one, fourth one, fifth one. But by about the 10th or 20th or 30th one, they're out of defensive capability. And this changes considerably with a country like China or with Russia. China in particular, because their goal is to take over Taiwan and to completely control their neighborhood in the South China Sea. They have surface-to-ship missiles that have a 2,000-mile range. And they're hypersonic, and they have exceedingly fast torpedoes. And so there's no way that an American ship can get within 1,500 to 2,000 miles of China if in a war condition. They wouldn't last 24 hours.
Well, World War II demonstrated that aircraft toward the end of the war, aircraft carriers were basically useless at the end because they just were overwhelmed. Basically a PT boat can sink a aircraft carrier in the right circumstances.
Yes, that's why those fast boats that they have in Iran are so lethal to an aircraft carrier. Yeah, and the drones are, and ultimately all you have to do is start a fire with all of the bombs and all of the fuel that's on an aircraft carrier and all the fuel that's in those fighters, and you disable it. Heck, we disabled a $13 billion aircraft carrier because the toilets didn't work, and then the laundry equipment didn't work, and it's taken out of the fight.
But where do you hang your mission accomplished banner if you don't have an aircraft carrier? I mean, how are the people going to know that you've won the war and you have opened the Strait of Hormuz if you don't have an aircraft carrier to hang the banner off of the bulkhead?
Yeah. Of course, one of the great stupidity things of the United States was a year prior to this war that the United States mothballed, sold off all of its mine destroyer. So all of the ships that we had specifically designed that we kept actually in Bahrain with the Fifth Fleet to remove mines from the Strait of Hormuz, we disbanded 12 months before this war. And the ships that we have designed that are going to take that role are just a boondoggle in terms of the engines don't run, the ship's defensive systems don't work, the mine sweeping capabilities fail. We went into an economic boondoggle that's a complete and an utter farce of complete failure. So nothing we can do.
But the big beautiful battleships have been approved for the next round of funding.
Trumpian. So, have you seen the new passport for America? If you were to issue a new passport. Oh, God's picture's right there.
It's got Trump's picture on it, yeah.
Full page. So, how do you even avoid the stigma of Satan? You have a U.S. passport. And, U.S. passports are hard to get rid of. Yeah. Here, I live on an island here that happens to be, part of U.S. territory. I can renounce my citizenship. But if I renounce my citizenship, there are tax obligations that go along with that. But if I renounce my citizenship, then I have to acquire new citizenship or I can't travel without a passport. And there's only one country in the area that will sell you a passport, and it's $250,000 per person. Mm-hmm. That is the Dominican Republic. Dominica, actually. It's Dominica. Will sell you a passport, but it's $250,000 a person. They've turned it into a profit center. So it's tough. And now if you have your passport renewed, it's going to have Satan's picture right there on the inside cover.
I've never had a passport.
You've never had a passport?
Nope.
Wow. So you can't go to a foreign country.
What do you mean? You can,
like Mexico or Canada, but for the most part, you have to have a passport to travel.
I can't fly. I can't get on a plane, at St. Louis and fly to Iceland or Great Britain or anywhere in the world I wanted to go. I can't, I can get on a boat and go anywhere in the world I wanted to go. I mean, once I get off,
they're going to arrest you. Yeah, you can't get off the boat without a passport either.
Well, they have liberty passports that they give you whenever a crewman gets off a ship of any sort. They are given 2 weeks that they are allowed to go within that country, and then you have to be out of there within 2 weeks. Yeah,
the people that are crews on those ships have passports. However, they're usually Filipino. They have passports, so what they're really given is a visa, to travel in the country. Yeah, it's really hard to get around without a passport, and unfortunately, the U.S. passport is going to have Satan's image in it. The
there's a
currency
huge
is going to have
business
his
in
image, postage stamps, everything.
There's a huge business in multiple passports. I mean, one person can have passports from as many countries as he wants to. You just have to get that country to give it to you.
Yeah.
It's got to be the same name on every passport, you know.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's companies that sell them. Yeah.
There are countries that sell them. They are expensive if you're just trying to buy one. I mean, like you can be a dual Israeli-American citizen, but you're going to have some reason that the Israelis are going to say, yeah, we'll give you a passport. And
in some countries, it's just a matter of buying some real estate in the country or depositing a certain money in the bank, and you get one.
Yeah, but as I say, it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars in most cases.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that the passport that you can buy doesn't give you very many rights. So if you were in a country and you have let's say if I have the Dominica passport and somebody in Romania wants to give me trouble, where do you go?
That's it. Yep.
Yeah, so it's really a difficult situation. I don't want to be an American. I left America, but it's difficult to get rid of some of that baggage.
Yep.
It's you can be opposed to the government. You can be opposed to the political parties, both on the left and the right. You can move away from them, but it's still difficult in today's world to be uninfluenced in some ways. And the passport is one of them. The IRS happens to be another one of them. I live on an island and I don't think the IRS has ever had a successful audit. And so almost everyone on this island doesn't pay U.S. income tax, and there is no territory income tax. I think it's 13 people on the island that pay some 95% of the taxes. But I still pay. I file every year. And what the accountant says, that's what you got to pay, that's what I pay. And I do it because I value my freedom. Mm-hmm. I don't want to take the risk of losing my freedom. And they play nasty. And so, it's only money. And I'm not taking it with me. And I'm spending almost all of it on what we're doing here. So, but it's not as easy to completely disassociate as we'd like.
Well, and have stuff. I mean, you can disassociate. You can go live in a woods and grow your own food. I mean, now you hope that if you break your leg, that you can walk into the local Band-Aid station and they'll take care of you and you can walk out. Mm-hmm. Okay, but if you want to have stuff, yes, you have to be involved in their system.
Yes,
it's
and,
all in how
and
much
if you're going to
tough.
be right, and if you're going to be the person that's going to find a homestead in the woods, that you buy your property and it has a climate where you can raise sheep, cattle, goats, whatever, for meat and milk, and you or hunt deer or whatever you're going to hunt, and you grow your own vegetables, you're going to spend almost all of your time being self-sufficient.
Yes. Freedom is not
I can't do that. I spend all of my time, 14 hours a day, doing this.
Right.
And so there is no time to be self-sufficient. So even that's a trade-off.
Yeah. Because
let's take one more, Kevin, and we'll call it a program here. Oh wow! What a
the Houthis.
Yeah. If for those who spend time now, and I hope most of you do, on yadayah.com, we have the blog page of yadayah.com where anything that I post and comment. I have a Facebook site. That's what we're going over right now. That isn't the Craig Wynn Facebook site. I haven't been to the Craig Wynn Facebook site probably in 2 months, maybe 3 months. When Facebook had their last conniption fit over faults of their own, I just said, it's just not worth the effort anymore. And what are we trying to do here? Let's get our website up to snuff so that we have communication within our family within that website, and we have news within that website, and we have the YouTube videos within that website, and we have our timeline, and we have our translation tools, and we have all the books presented as this library. Let's do our website so that's our community. I was hopeful that we could do that. That was asking a lot. No one's ever done that with a website before, but that was the goal. And the news, we have to stay appraised of the news, and we have to perceive the news from the perspective of prophecy. We have to know, for example, what is it that's going to trigger the Fakistanian state that the prophet spoke of that's going to occur within this next year. We have to be aware of that. We have to understand how the prophet spoke of Rahab and of the great betrayer of Israel, and how that's Donald Trump. We need to know that to be an effective community and to speak against religion and politics and conspiracy. So all of this is posted under the blog heading at yadayah.com. And what I said on this one is I would really strongly recommend listening to this presentation. It is the birth of the Houthis. The Houthis were not named the Houthis until this man, Hussein al-Houthi, left the government. He was a minister in the government that he ultimately rebelled against. And he joined the Believing Youth. That's the organization in the north part of Yemen, one of the poorest countries in the Islamic world. They had disassociated from the rest of the country because they thought that the rest of the country was too amalgamated into Saudi Arabia. And they didn't like the Saudi Arabian influence. So they were going to be their own little deal. And they set up, Hitler youth camps and, that sort of thing to teach fundamentalist Islam. And of course, there's not much of a change from fundamentalist Islam to jihadi Islam. They're one and the same. And so those youth camps quickly became mujahideen camps. And so al-Houthi here decides one day that he's going to leave the government and he is going to turn the Believing Youth, which the government at the time supported, into the fundamentalist enemy. And he wanted to establish the same thing that was in Iran, where there would be an Islamic republic and the entirety of the government of Yemen would be based on the Qur'an. That was his intent. And so to accomplish that, he had to become a jihadist and overthrow the government. And if you look at the Houthi flag says death to America, death to Israel, and it says, to the glory of Allah. It's a declaration of war. And ultimately, they prevailed. That's why they got their AK-47s and their Houthi knives and all that sort of thing. Well, all they had to do to be an influence is to prevail over the government, and they did it with their AK-47s and their little Houthi dance and all that sort of thing. But that's how they became known as Houthi from Believing Youth. And then the Iranians figured out that, let's see, if we're ever attacked, our response is going to be to close the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, we'll build the infrastructure underground to make certain we can do that because that gives us leverage. That is our defensive leverage. These fellas, they're looking right down over the entrance to the Gulf Sea, the Red Sea, huh? Oh, we got 40 or 20% of the world's flow of oil. They got about 20% over there. We'll shut the whole world down if they screw with us. And so they gave the Houthis some of their best missiles, some of their best bunkering technologies. And then, Trump said, oh, yeah, we're going to go and bomb the Houthis like they've never been bombed before. And after spending billions of dollars and losing two really upper end F-15, F-35 caliber aircraft and losing all manner of Predator drones and shooting all manner of missiles. I mean, billions of dollars. We lost to the Houthis. The Houthis with their AK-47s, the little Houthi knives and their Houthi dance. America's Navy and air force lost to the Houthis. And the retreat where Trump said he declared victory and left, that was negotiated by the United Arab Emirates. The United Arab Emirates says, yeah, you're in a real fix here, and you can't win here. So here what we're going to do. You're going to declare victory and hightail it out of town. And that's what he did. And so the U.S. has lost to the Houthis. And after that, you think that you're going to prevail by going to war against the Houthi supplier in Iran? This was not very bright, was it? But anyway, that story of the Houthis, I strongly recommend listening to that. It's just an interesting progression. And what's also interesting is that, do you know why Hussein al-Houthi joined the Believing Youth? It's because when the United States decided it was going to fight the war against terror, when we declared war on a tactic and fundamentally made bad situations worse around the world, we went everywhere. And we bribed governments with weapons. And so we went into the Yemenite government and said, we'll give you all these weapons if you allow us to have bases here so we can hunt down fundamentalist Muslims, Al-Qaeda types. And the government went along with it. And al-Houthi says, no, this is an invasion of Islam. This is wrong. You can't do that. And so the Houthis were actually a response to America's manipulation of the Yemenite government, where we bribed them with weapons to allow America to fight its war against terror. We created the Houthis.
Wasn't the coal? Didn't that happen in Yemen? The USS Cole bombing wasn't that at a port in Yemen that was supposed to be safe? I was trying to. They never claimed it to be ISIS at the time, but I don't. It's been so long ago. I was trying to remember who the actual scapegoats were for driving the boat there. I wonder if it was Houthis, because that's part of, like you were saying, they're paying money for the Americans to buy our weapons, and we can have our boats here while we bomb other Muslims, and of course
unintended consequence. We went into Afghanistan because we thought the Afghanis were to blame for 9/11 when there wasn't a single Afghani that had anything to do with it. We decided we'd go against Saddam Hussein, even though he was opposed to Al-Qaeda and all fundamentalist Islamic groups, and he had formerly been our ally. And we made both situations worse. We made a bad situation worse in Yemen, just like we did in Libya, just like we did in Syria, like we are in Iran. America is becoming very proficient at making bad situations worse because we don't think. We've lost our moral compass. So let's dial down one more there, sir. We're seeing old things now. So somehow it just didn't refresh. Oh, this is really funny. So many people are just ignorant. And so this particular video is saying that God created Islam. And that, it's a big part of the plan of God is Islam. And just like, and you say, well, why would he create Islam when it's opposed to Christ? As if God created a Christ. And it's just staggering how utterly ignorant the religious are.
And will defend them. And will defend themselves to each other, because you have the Pope can go to these imams and say about how we all worship one God, and when they're diametrically opposed,
Correct.
So
it's just the universal ignorance of people. The Quran is so obviously untrue. Allah's not a God. Muhammad wasn't a prophet. Muhammad was amongst the most perverted people who ever lived. And there is nothing in the Quran is true. The whole thing from beginning to end, if it wasn't so disgusting, it would be comical. It's just utterly rubbish. And there's almost no way that I can properly frame how horrible Muhammad, Allah, and the Quran are, and the first Muslims were. And that's the reason why. Well, to properly chronicle it, I've got here. 4,200 pages, where the entire book is based on the Qur'an and Hadith. I use Muhammad's and Allah's words to hang them. And I did the same thing for the Christian New Testament. It's absolute rubbish from beginning to end. It's just trash. And it's so obviously untrue. And you did the same thing with Ezekiel, which is the crown jewel of Judaism. They just love that. And how the Talmud is just nothing but moronic claims and arguments against the Torah. And it's, you listen to rabbis talk about their religious beliefs and festivals, and they're so contrary to God that you walk away saying that religion has absolutely destroyed some 90% of humanity's ability to think. And somebody going to hear truth about Islam is written in the Bible. No, it isn't. Islam's not mentioned. There are indirect references to terrorists and the last wars, but there's no mention of Islam. There's no mention of Muhammad. No mention of the Quran. There's no mention of Allah, other than the Hebrew word for curse happens to be Allah. But it's not because of the Islamic God. From God's point of view, Islam is got all the worth of navel lint.
Not worth the real estate in Towrah, is it?
No, and Christians think that their religion is all over the Torah and Prophet. No, it's never mentioned. There's no Christianity. There's no church. There is no Jesus. There's no Christ. There's no mention of any of this. So no, there isn't any truth in the inspired by God in the Torah or prophets or Psalms pursuant to Christianity or to Islam or to Judaism for that matter. It's not there. God hates religion. So have you ever wondered? No, unfortunately, people don't think. And what you are doing here is promoting a lie. So no, they don't. It's part of the reason, Roger, that, I know that you were one of the great contributors to Facebook when we were there, and I was, live streaming those, and you could contribute to the chat. And, I just moved away. I just said, I can't do this anymore. I just don't want to be subjected to this toxicity. To be a puppet and a play that's run by AI just did not appeal to me at all. But it's really ugly out there.
Yes, it is, especially in X. I
X
totally
is the
abandoned
worst.
X.
Yeah. I have too. I haven't been to X in 3 months. I have no idea what's happening with that account. I haven't been to X in 3 months. And I haven't been on the Facebook site in probably 2 months. And at this point, we post on those sites because they're live feeds. But I'm never there to comment or review anything. And thank God we were able to create between my wife and I and Joe and then Kevin played a huge role in this. But we were able to create a forum and a capability of presenting the library and the vlogs and the blog and the books and everything on yadayah.com. It's a safe haven from all of the nonsense.
Yes, it is. It's a refreshing breeze of truth and enlightenment, it's surrounded by a fog of misinformation and lies.
Yes.
It's so refreshing.
And because we're not just going to promote ourselves on these social media sites, the people that find yadayah.com are going to be there for a reason, and it's their home, it's their family, it's our place to prepare. It's the home for Yahweh's name. It's the library going forward. It's the hub for the millennial Shabbat. We have God's endorsement over it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's always fun to do the vlog on the blog. It is more fun with both of you here, and Rich chimed in as well, and Rich running the show. So thank you, Rich, for doing this for us. And Kevin and Roger, it was your impetus saying, Roger thinks it'd be good if we did a combined show, and Kevin passed that on to me, and I said, not only it would be better to do a combined show, but we need to do a show. We haven't done one in 2 weeks for a vlog on the vlog. I'd actually like to see the vlog on the vlog as the first thing on the vlog page. I think it actually would be the more interesting way to get into the whole site, because it blends everything together. I'd love to see the vlog on the vlog. To do that, of course, the first one, which was before we had this Wookiee introduction, we had a much more, a 5-second Wookiee introduction. We need to change the thumbnail on it so that it fits with the rest of them. But once we do that, I think the blog on the vlog could be the ideal start. I'd also like to see elements of the basics duplicated on the vlog, like Yahweh's name and the Luminary series should really be in both places. And I think we're tagging everything correctly, but it's just not working. So I hope we can figure out that as well. What I've got you here, Kevin, and I know that Perry has been, he's not in the room right now, but he has been working diligently on getting invites and music and that sort of thing up, and making sure that all of our additions are current. We do need to have a better communication mechanism between the creative team, particularly Miss Leia, and the presentation team at the various sites that we use to automatically feed this. For those that don't know, if as an independent person, if you tried to host the enormity of the data required in a long form video like this, 2 hour plus 2.5 hour video, and you have 1,000 of them, and the songs that are hugely animated, and the file sizes are enormous. I mean, just absolutely overwhelming large. And then the cost to stream them and to have multiple live streams, you'd have to be a billionaire to do this, or you have to use the sites that have been created specifically for it. And so we use Facebook and we use mostly YouTube. So all these things have to be posted on a site in a specific way that the code within our own site scoops them up, brings them into our own site so that you can view them from our site, even though you're effectively seeing them streamed from YouTube using YouTube's bandwidth. And YouTube gets the credit for the viewers, and that's how they make their money, is by hours and engagement and all that. They get the credit for all that. We don't care. So they get all the credit for that, but we have to have them posted. And the music group is now like one song a day. It's just amazing, and the songs are spectacular. But we just need a way to be able to keep current. As when I went to my wife's Facebook site, I think I found 4 or 5 songs that are new that hadn't made to our music page, and 3 or 4 invites that hadn't made it yet, because they're really productive. So and I know we have some limits that make it challenging, and it takes a lot of time, but the more we can get up to speed and keep it current, the easier it'll be and the better it will be. So thank you for doing that. I know you also spent a lot of time, and were very effective at chasing down the broken URLs, because we've had so many different sites over the years. There were lots of URLs.
3,000 broken links. Yeah.
Yeah, 3,000 broken links. So to try to resolve that's a lot of work. And I think Joe gave you the instructions. This is our problem, and you were the fixer.
I can click.
Thank you for doing that. So. Yeah, and I'm noticing that every time now that we have something like I wanted to prioritize the best of the invites. I think some of these invites are just world class, so inspiring. So I put, because there's 150 of them, I put exclamation points on the ones that I thought were the best, and you found a way to prioritize those. Now, the only thing that wasn't ideal is some of the things where I put an exclamation point after a song or something that wasn't, for this purpose. It scoped them up from the past, and I don't know how we go about eliminating something. But
there is an exclamation point that is an exclamation point, and there's an exclamation point that is a space exclamation point.
Yes, the thing that I did to avoid that was actually what you have just figured out, which is the exclamation point that is the priority is a space, exclamation point, space. So there's a space on both sides of it as opposed to serving as punctuation at the end of a statement. Yep, you figured that out. Yep, that is correct. That is how I
clean that up. Not a problem.
Yeah. I had. Otherwise, I'll have to go in and I'll eliminate some of those things in the past. And I don't have a problem, by the way, in the invites having some of the songs that are written really as an invitation as well. And just on another note, there are some of the the song that you co-authored with Leah. That has the Ipanema Beach theme in it. It doesn't appear in the music that I could find. So your own collaboration isn't there, should be there.
Oh, the video. Yeah. No, but Yada Me is in the invites page. It's like on Fourth Down or something like that. I make sure that the music for Yada Me is in there. Absolutely.
Okay, it's on the music page.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
well,
yeah. It should be on the music
Me.
page. Could be on the music page and the invite page. Could be in both places, but it should be on the music page, and it should be there with your graphics. I listened the other day. First of all, I think that Sing Boldly, and also the Ruth. There's 2 songs now based on Ruth, and man, they really are powerful. But the song on Star Spangled Cosplay, showing Satan as Trump. Star Spangled Cosplay, the lyrics for that song and the reggae beat is so extraordinary. If we could get some graphics for that, well, we're not looking, to go viral, other than it'd be nice to get Israel's attention. That's a song that should go viral, and Israel, if we can get some good graphics to that. But I just don't know how anybody could have come up with that many clever twists to create, or even the name Star Spangled Cosplay. And I mean, not many people that are our age even know what cosplay is.
We know the lady that did the song. What do you mean you don't know how somebody could come up with that name?
I know, but she's creating a song a day, and when you realize and the Ruth songs just grab you by the heart. I mean, they just literally grab your heart and hold it out for you to look at. And this Sing Boldly is an example of another one like that, and then to have all of these parody songs, it's just stupendous. And I know it's a team effort, but
absolutely,
it is a team effort. But oh my goodness, and there's people that are contributing to them, like some of the animation. We have a Covenant member that's born, I think, in Nigeria, lives in New York now as a technologist of sorts, and his work is just world class. People I had very little encounter with, and now they're making just tremendous contributions. John Voight, who you introduced me to, is so very talented and really a gifted artist.
He is, yeah.
And you look at again,
and there are so many people doing things that don't get that front page, like a content creator or anything like that. That
yes,
I mean, just the people doing the transcripts for us is huge. The folks that are in distribution that every day will go in and will post to our Instagrams and to our TikToks, and I mean, tons of people that are contributing that don't get that notoriety or whatever you're looking for. Absolutely, thank you to all of them.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately with Yahweh, what he's looking for is contribution, not notoriety.
Yeah.
And in fact, notoriety is a really bad thing. To tell you the truth, the people that get the notoriety all are ducking for cover and saying, God, what did you do to me? Why, this is really a bad idea. I want out. So you don't actually want the notoriety. But you do want Yada to know that you've been active in the contribution. So the non-notoriety, making a contribution, is actually the best of all worlds.
Rich has got it figured out. He's in the Virgin Islands. He's got the paradise. He doesn't have to be on. He's one of the hardest. He's one of the hardest working guys that I know.
He is.
But he's never on screen. He doesn't have.
Yeah, Rich pretty much has it wired. He's got the life. Rich though, in terms of personality, there is an attitude that is really appealing to Yahweh, and Rich has that attitude in spades. He is absolutely lovable, so unbelievably comfortable to be around. He just is, and so it's the perfect personality to have been brought in.
You two have been through enough crap to have somebody come down here and stir up shit.
Yeah, we certainly have. It goes with the territory. Ask Moshe, ask Dode, I asked Elia. They all will attest to you that it's a tough damn job. But you've done a great job of making it happen. And Kevin, as I keep on
to watch.
Yeah, and Kevin is the glue that kind of keeps it all together, and we are exceedingly grateful. It's obvious that when Yahweh picked people that he was going to work through, those people were not picked because they were accommodating. They're not picked because they're easy to get along with, right?
Yeah.
All of them. So to work within this framework, you've got to work with. My wife will occasionally have we call it. To appreciate my wife, you have to have, it's an acquired taste, and I'm somebody was telling me, one of the people who works with us here to support what we're doing, and saying, you're so easy, you're really easy to get along with. And I said, I'm not so sure that would be the overall view of things. This is, you've got to have some very rough edges. You can't ever compromise. You've got to be aggressive. And how many people are popular that condemn the left and right politically, Islam and Christianity and Judaism and conspiracy, and in a world that thrives on conspiracy, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, and MAGA and Marxist politics, and you're opposed to all of them while you're speaking for Yahweh, and that's got to be your prime job. Yeah, so it takes something special to make that happen, and I'm grateful for you doing it. Roger, great contribution. We'll try to do the blog on the blog on a weekly basis. This one, the reason we didn't do one prior week is that, normally the kinds of things that are taking place in the world in the news are so all-consuming, and they're so specific to the future of Israel. And once this war went into its intermission phase, now it's just chaos everywhere, and so it isn't as specific as we would normally have for a targeted. Let's talk in an hour about the mess that is America actually going to try to invade those islands, and that was our last program, and yes, we had 25,000 troops there and all of the invasion equipment there to invade those islands. And, the likelihood is the only reason we didn't do it is that the military couldn't figure out a way to do it. And so that the people who said we can't do it were fired until they kept on finding everybody said we can't do it. So they just kept on saying, oh, well, maybe we really can't do it. But imagine what would have happened if the U.S. had invaded Krog Island and the islands of the Strait and had charged in there with our Navy and with A-10s and Apache helicopters, Gatling guns rattling, and tried to support a land invasion of Iran. What would have happened to all the Gulf states, and what would have happened to those troops? No, God. What a disaster that would have been in terms of now there's no way out. What was the problem with the Vietnam War is that once we had lost 1,000 men, there was no way out, because if you left, then you had those men die in vain, right? And so we ended up having almost 60,000 Americans die because we lost 1,000 Americans to a senseless war based on a lie, and there was just never any way out until Nixon and Kissinger finally said, let's declare victory and leave. Peace in our time, victory and leave. And that's what
been our MO ever since.
Been our MO ever since. We lost the war.
And leave.
Yeah, we lost the war. Let's declare victory and leave. Except we're having a tough time leaving Iraq now. We still have a legacy of troops there. They will be out. Within 2 years, they won't be there anymore. But
yeah, it's a sad situation.
It is. And what we didn't talk about on this program is that how that sad situation leads to the total demise of the U.S. economy and the petrodollar and the ability to prop it up. But what's going to happen? The high likelihood is the U.S. is going to confiscate gold again, like it did under FDR, and make it illegal and to own privately and a felony, and you have to sell it at a below market price, and they give you worthless inflated dollars, paper currency, or their controlled currency in replace of it. And then they mark up the value of it and said, well, now that we have this value of it, we have no more debt. We wiped out the debt with our gold reserves. It's going to be smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, they'll use digital conversions for everything. So even if you have cash, they'll find a way to force you into a digital dollar.
So the only hedge you have is gold, and they'll confiscate the gold. And if you have physical gold, they'll confiscate that too. And there's no way for you to have a market for it or to sell it. They'll make all that criminal. Yep. So it really put everybody in a very difficult position. And as we found out with the COVID situation, most people will willingly give up their freedoms and their livelihoods for fear porn.
Yep, exactly.
And same thing is going to happen here. So it's we're 3 weeks away from the beginning of the time of Israel's troubles, the most horrific period in human history, according to the prophets. So it's going to get really, really nasty out there, and the prophets are exceedingly hostile to Donald Trump and to America as being an instigator in all that's going to go bad and wrong. And while it doesn't specify what percentage of the world's population at all dies, God is actually working behind the scenes to protect a remnant of Israel, and still 2 out of every 3 Israelis will die over the next 7 years. And it'll be far worse than the Holocaust.
It's going to be a real belly drop to some people, that's for sure.
Ooh. And what God is saying, if God's not actually causing any of this to happen, but he's saying if it didn't happen, they wouldn't return. There'd be no final remnant. No one, they'd never listen. They'd go on erasing Yahweh's name and disparaging Dode and being religious, being militant. So it's going to be quite the pickle. And of course, in Israel, boy, it's a house divided. The Marxists and the Haredi are at each other's throats, and there's no constitution and no political solution. And you just had Naftali and Lapid say we're going to join in together as a single political party. You got a communist and a centrist, where the communist has essentially no seats left in the Knesset, and the centrist had his day in the sun, and he was awful at it. And so, where is Israel? What are they going to do? Netanyahu is hated by the world, and is exceedingly caustic to the nation's survival. But where's the alternative? I told you that Benny Gantz would fade off into the oblivion. He has. You almost never see anything about Benny Gantz. And Ben Gurr is the one that's rising in popularity, and he's a genuine nutcase. Smoltrich, who actually was sane most of the time, and he's fallen off the planet. Really, politics is a weird beast.
It is. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you can love Israel and support Israel, but absolutely be opposed to the Israeli government, and they're just going to find that the IDF that failed on October 7th is the same IDF that's going to fail going forward, and that their use right now in Lebanon and Gaza and in Iran was a complete disaster, and they'll continue to irritate Turkey through their maneuvers in Syria, and eventually Turkey is going to respond.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So when Erdogan responds, and even though he's no friend of the Iranians, but they'll unite for this cause.
Yeah.
Well, they're the wild card player over there, for sure.
Yeah, I had a post to here. We just didn't get to it. On the Egyptians are having all manner of war games now in the Sinai, and threatening Israel through their war games in the Sinai. That's in direct violation of the Camp David Accords.
Right.
Israel gave up the Sinai with a promise that Egypt would never advance military hardware, ever position military hardware in the Sinai, and that's exactly the opposite of what they're doing. And that Israel was paid whatever was $3 billion a year to give up the Sinai, because America would make the money back, because with that deal, the Egyptians said, okay, if you give us back the Sinai, and you give us some aid, we'll start buying all of our weapons from the United States as opposed to Russia. That was the deal. So now that the United States have welched on the deal and the Egyptians have, should the Israelis take back the Sinai? The deal they made to give it up.
They will if things get quiet in the north. If they can leave Lebanon alone long enough, because it's quiet up there, and Netanyahu starts looking for his next I need to move a headline someplace, then yeah, they'll roll into the Sinai under just those auspices. Yeah. Or the U.S. will say, well, that's where we're going to put our Israeli base is in the Sinai.
Yeah, and of course the big question for Israel is what's going to happen in Iran. There is no way that we're going to get a resolution that's satisfactory to the United States or Israel. But do you get an intermission between now and the Alaska Flood 2.0 beginning in 2027 and expanding through beginning in 2030 is what I think it's going to be the worst. But is that we're going to have a bit of a hiatus for that to occur, or is it just the war just resume and they continue to beat each other up?
Yeah, I don't know that war, I don't think that it can happen quickly, because if it does happen quickly, it accelerates out of control too quickly.
Right.
That boom, too many people die, too much hitting is done for the time frame that's left. I mean, not that it goes nuclear, but it's just the slow, sluggish.
Yeah, if Iran, Turkey invade Israel, which is that last battle, which is going to happen, but if it happens in 2027, it doesn't seem like Israel would be in a position to survive.
Yes.
And you actually need the two witnesses there, because they're protection services. What those witnesses do is that the remnant that has the potential for being part of the family going forward, they're protected, even in the midst of all of this. But you don't have any protection for them prior to that.
Yeah, 27 to 30, or from 27 to 30, there's nothing. So that's 3 years that, it can't happen that fast.
I don't think it can either.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to watch to see how all of those things play out. But Kevin, Roger, enjoyed doing the show. Thank you so much, Rich. We'll do another one of these hopefully next week, and we'll see what happens in the news between now and then. But this has been great. Another episode of the Vlog on a Vlog.
Great fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Roger.
Hey there. Thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.